good.
It's okay. I'll be all right. I just feel like I'm on the ground. Hi, Denise. Welcome aboard. Thank you. Nice to see you again.
Councilman?
Hello, Terry.
Hello.
Everybody has a thing going on here. It's for mayor or for you? It's for you, okay. They gotta pay.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Would everyone please stand for a short prayer and a salute to our flag? Almighty God, grant us the wisdom to make those decisions that are in the best interest of all our residents. May the Heavenly Father of us all bless those who have given the ultimate sacrifice in service to our nation, and may He watch over and protect our servicemen and women now guarding the gates of freedom. Salute to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all. Terry, statement of publication?
Yes, Mayor, take notice that this regular meeting of the Mayor and Borough Council being held on this 14th day of May, 2018, has been advertised and posted in accordance with Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Buchanan,
Here.
Grillo,
Here.
Kilpatrick,
Here.
Lembo, Melendez,
Here.
Novak.
Here.
Okay, at this time, Council President, if you do the prior minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the following minutes of the mayor and council be approved on roll call vote, subject to correction if necessary. The April 5th, 2018 special meeting COA matters, April 9th, 2018 council meeting and executive session, April 9th, 2018 agenda session, and May 7th, 2018 special meeting COA matters and executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, with great pleasure, I will ask the VFW to come forward. If I could ask the council, we'll go up to the rail out of respect.
It's on camera, I can't.
Sorry.
Whereas the annual distribution of Buddy Poppies by the Veterans of Foreign Wars of the United States has been officially recognized and endorsed by the government leaders since 1922. Whereas the VFW Buddy Poppies are assembled by disabled veterans, and the proceeds of this worthy fundraising campaign are used exclusively for the benefit of disabled and needy veterans and the widows and orphans of deceased veterans. And whereas the basic purpose of the annual distribution of Buddy Poppies by the Veterans of Foreign Wars is eloquently reflected in the desire to honor the dead by helping the living. Now therefore, I, Kennedy O'Brien, Mayor of the Borough of Saraville, do hereby urge the citizens of this community to recognize the merits of this cause by contributing generously to its support through the purchase of Buddy Poppies on the day set aside for the distribution of these symbols of appreciation for the sacrifices of our honored dead. I urge all patriotic citizens to wear a Buddy Poppy as mute evidence of our gratitude to the men and women of this country who have risked their lives in defense of the freedoms which we continue to enjoy as American citizens. A witness whereof I have caused this proclamation to be issued, and the official seal of the borough duly affixed this 14th of May, 2018, and the same duly attested by the municipal court. Gentlemen, we thank you for the freedoms that we enjoy today.
Mr. Mayor and Council, thank you for this opportunity. Again, the poppies will benefit the disabled and needy veterans of our country who served in your behalf as everybody else. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. If you would, be generous. Thank you, everyone. The veterans will now come around.
Platinum card, actually. Platinum.
Usually they come back. Yeah, that's bad.
Where'd he go?
My dad lended me money.
Hey, usually he has to bring it for all of us.
Is there a motion for the proclamation?
So moved, Mayor.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'll wait for them to finish.
There it goes. Going.
Harry? Harry? Harry, I believe your proclamation is up here. And again, a grateful borough thanks you. Go ahead, Terry, you can read that.
Mayor, next we have a proclamation for Lyme disease. Whereas May marks Lyme Disease Awareness Month, reminding us to take care and to avoid tick bites when exploring the great outdoors and to avoid catching the disease. Whereas the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention estimate 300,000 people are diagnosed with Lyme disease in the U.S. every year. It is most commonly reported tick-borne infectious disease in the United States. Children are especially hard hit by the Lyme disease, with the hardest incidence amongst children between the ages of 5 to 14. Whereas, given the advances made with modern medicine, there is neither a reliable diagnostic test for Lyme disease nor an effective treatment for long-term Lyme. Whereas Lyme disease can require expensive treatment and the cost is often not covered by insurance. Catching Lyme disease quickly means that patients can be treated with the appropriate antibiotics in the early stages, which usually means a quick and full recovery. Whereas Lyme disease has been found on every continent except Antarctica. It is found across the United States, with a particularly high incidence in the East, Midwest, and West Coast. Rates have increased significantly over time. Some of this increase may be because the disease has spread, but it is also likely that it reflects growing public awareness of the disease. Now, therefore, I, Kennedy O'Brien, Mayor of the Borough of Sayreville, do hereby proclaim the month of May as Lyme Disease Awareness Month and encourage all community members to take advantage of the resources available to them and to help spread Lyme disease awareness and prevention education. In witness whereof I have caused this proclamation to be issued, the official seal of the borough duly affixed this 14th day of May, 2018, and the same attested by the municipal clerk.
I move the proclamation be approved on roll call vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Wait.
Terry, old business? Well, it's not that time, dear. Are you with the Lyme disease? Oh, I'm terribly sorry. Come up then.
People really don't understand the Lyme.
Honey, if you could take the microphone and state your name and
My
where you live.
daughter, who's been suffering from a Lyme disease for years. She has chronic Lyme, and she was just diagnosed. We had to go to a Lyme literate doctor because you never have Lyme. There's no such thing as Lyme. You get bit by a tick, you get a bullseye, you go get antibiotics. There is no cure. It attacks your organs. It attacks your brain. You get parasites all over you, Bartonella, Babesia, all kind of things. I've seen her go through what I had two parents that died from cancer. I've never seen anything like what she went through and is still going through fighting. There's no awareness. People think that this is they just don't want to hear about it. There's nothing out there. They don't really know. They really don't know what this disease can do to you, especially, and most of the people that I've met that have been going to these doctors, they don't even ever remember getting bit. So they've had it for years and years and years, and now there is just so much going on. It's unbelievable. People need to know how bad this is. People are dying from this. This is chronic Lyme that the CDC doesn't even want to acknowledge. I don't understand it. And thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars are spent for treatments, supplements, and there's no funding anywhere for us. We're struggling so hard to try to help her get better for so long. And she's playing just because she doesn't look horrible. People don't take it seriously, but what's going on in the inside of her is hell. Hell. I just wish that more people would just try to get to know really what this is about, what Lyme really does. And it's everywhere. It's everywhere. There's 6 different kinds in New Jersey. They just found a new one that came, the first in the United States, they found here. It comes from East Asia, Japan. They found it in New Jersey. It multiplies without having intercourse, to put it that way. It just multiplies. And 30% of the people die from this. I have a whole article about this. There's, like I said, there's so many different ticks. There was a girl in the school where I work. Her mother took her son to the park. He's 4 years old. She came back, she posted that he had 3 ticks on by his backside that were the size of a poppy seed. So they're hard to, you don't know when you're getting bit. And then as years go by, so many specialists I took her to because there were so many things wrong with her, and nothing. This is really a big, big problem. And I think we got to start here, and I plan on going to the governor next because something has to be done. Awareness has to be made of how serious this really is because people really don't get it. And I was hoping that you could start here since we live here in Sayreville.
What would you like?
I don't know.
How can we
like,
help you?
first of all, like, what are they doing? They're everywhere in the parks and everything. They're everywhere. What's anybody doing? Is anybody doing anything about the ticks that are there? No. Nothing's being done. They're all in the trees. Or Burke's Park, forget it. That's a tick haven right there. I mean, people need to know how serious this is.
Are there Lyme tick or Lyme disease associations, organizations?
Yeah, well, we had gone to Limelight, and they helped us with.
Is there a New Jersey chapter?
Not as far as I know, but they only give you a limit of 10,000, and that went in a year. So not even a year because we were paying in between we got the checks, and that's it. That's for the lifetime. And
Mayor, if I might, I'm very sorry to hear about your condition, and I think I'm an avid hiker. I hike at the Capac Preserve a lot here in town, and you're right. There was just a social media post I saw this weekend of what looked like a bagel, a poppy seed bagel. It was
Yes.
actually all ticks. They are so small now, especially in New Jersey. That's not the traditional one that I think we all grew up learning about.
Because there's 6 different species in
Yep.
New Jersey right now.
And so maybe the best thing that we can do, at least at this early juncture, is because this summer is finally upon us, that maybe on our town website and our TV channel, maybe we could put some information about checking your children for ticks, just reminding people that sometimes these are so small that you really have to take an in-depth look at your child's legs and arms, and just remind people that the best prevention is to find that tick as immediately as possible. So,
But the problem is, too, then they go to a regular doctor. There is no good testing that with a regular doctor. I took her to so many, and
Where
did they-
was your daughter finally diagnosed?
well, to be honest with you, the first person that told us she had Lyme was a lady from Living Waters and Oaks. because my daughter would have to go there for colonics because she couldn't even move her bowels. She had
No,
Lyme.
But in what state?
Doctors in this state, Dr. Zimmerman,
Okay, and where is Dr. Zimmerman?
and then Dr. Straight, and now we go to Integrative Wellness Center for treatments.
Where are they located?
One is in Tinton Falls, the other one Howell, and the other one Belmar.
So it's all south.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to leave your information with our clerk, if she doesn't have it already, and we will reach out to you to contact. To begin, as the councilman said, Steve, if you have time, I'd ask you to take a leadership role on this. And we'll move forward.
And like for more information, the Global Lyme Disease Alliance, that's a global funding for Lyme disease. And also this is actually Lyme Disease Awareness Month. Like, it is a real thing. People just don't realize that because it's not talked about anywhere. But on your social media, if you have a social media, you can, it's called Take a Bite Out of Lyme. So you take a bite out of a lime and post a picture or a short video, and then you put a fact and then challenge 3 people to do it too, and then that spreads to raise awareness.
Okay. When we contact your mother, we'll get that information.
Okay,
My heart goes out to you.
thank you.
It truly does.
To get better, and there's no cure. There's no cure for chronic Lyme. Oh, thanks so much for
Okay.
giving me this time and this.
No?
Thanks so much.
We'll be in touch.
All right, I really appreciate it. Thank you all.
Okay. Steve, you'll follow up with Terry to? Absolutely. Okay, thank you. Young lady, you're in Saraville, and Saraville has a habit of taking care of their own, so. Okay. Terry, the next order of business?
Yes, Mayor, next order of business, we have the public hearing on the following ordinance, ordinance number 406-18, an ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 8, licensing Section 3 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Saraville, peddlers and hawkers.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to open the public portion. Tommy, did you have anything to say? Or Scott? Scott here, or did he walk?
Yes, Scott.
Scott, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, you did. A good vision.
Scott Kaminkowitz, 309 Main Street, South Amboy. I first want to thank the governing body and the mayor for asking for the input from my dad, me, and Tommy Nagel. It's rare. I think most people say it's rare when people who are elected to office want to hear what's going on. A lot of times people just want to say what they want to say, but I really appreciate the attentive ear, and I really appreciate also the work of Terry and Mr. Dupont in helping craft this ordinance. I remember a couple months ago when we first started talking about this, Ms. Kilpatrick, you had questions and you had comments that you wanted to see the ability for food trucks to be at certain events, what have you. And as Terry and I and Mr. Dupont, we looked at it again, and the provisions exist for that. All right, if there's anything else, whatever, I'm not aware of it, but that already exists. So there's plenty of opportunities for people to operate at events, what have you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Oh, and good luck, Denise.
Tommy? Scott, is your dad coming up? Oh, he's here. It's Bear, I'm sorry. You're dressing, you're wearing Armani suits now.
I'd just like to say just about the same thing that Scott said. Mike and Terry and everybody's input in this was really, really good. Everybody really helped each other out and discussed a lot of things, but especially Mike and Terry did a really great job helping us out. Okay.
Thank you, Tom. Bear, did you want to say anything? You good? Okay, are there any other questions on this ordinance? Being no other questions, I'll entertain a motion. Councilwoman Novak.
Mayor, I move the public hearing be closed, the ordinance adopted on second and final reading and advertised according to law.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Novak,
Yes.
Buchanan,
Yes.
Grillo,
Yes.
Kilpatrick,
Yes, with comment, and I just want to say to the gentleman that came up, and thank you. It is an opportunity when government has a chance to come together with the people that are most involved in this, and you're experts in this. So I appreciate all of your input, and I think that what we have before us is something that will work for the town, revisiting something that's been on the books for a long time, and making it something that today we can move forward with. So thank you, gentlemen.
Lembo, Melendez.
Yes.
Okay, are there any appointments tonight?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to appoint Favor King.
Who?
We
Okay.
actually
Yeah,
have
yeah, yeah.
in our
Mhm.
packets here, to the Human Relations Commission.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Kilpatrick,
Yes.
Buchanan,
Yes.
Grillo,
Yes.
Lembo, Melendez,
Yes.
Novak.
Yes.
Next item?
Mayor, under new business, I'd like to report having received the supplemental debt statement from our CFO Denise Biancamano as of May 14, 2018. Need a motion to receive and file?
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next item?
Introduction of following ordinances, ordinance number 407-18, an ordinance appropriating $285,500 for the acquisition of various vehicles and equipment in the Water Department for and by the Borough of Saraville County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey.
Councilwoman Novak?
I move the ordinance be approved on first reading, advertised according to law for a public hearing to be held on May 23rd prevailing time.
Second.
May 29th, that should be.
Okay, see, I read what was written here.
Yes, you did, it was written there, it's wrong.
Is there a
Second.
motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next item?
Introduction of ordinance number 408-18, an ordinance amending Chapter 7 Traffic, Section 7-3.3, parking prohibited at all times on certain streets of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Saraville.
Councilman Buchanan?
Thank you, Mayor. I move the ordinance be approved on first reading, advertised according to law, and a public hearing to be held on May 29, 2018.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Buchanan,
Yes.
Grillo,
Yes.
Kilpatrick,
Yes.
Lembo, Melendez,
Yes.
Novak.
Yes.
Next item?
Introduction of ordinance 409-18, bond ordinance providing for the acquisition of vehicles and equipment by and for the Borough of Saraville, New Jersey, appropriating $1,320,000, therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $1,254,000 bonds or notes of the borough for financing part of such appropriation.
Councilwoman Novak?
Mayor, I move the ordinance be approved on first reading, advertised according to law for a public hearing to be held on May 29th prevailing time.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Novak,
Yes.
Buchanan,
Yes.
Grillo,
Yes.
Kilpatrick,
Yes.
Lambo, Melendez.
Yes.
Next item?
Introduction of ordinance number 410-18, an ordinance of the Borough of Saraville, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, adopting the Hercules redevelopment plan and amending the zoning map.
Councilman Lembo?
Mayor, I move the ordinance be approved on first reading and advertised according to law and public hearing to be held on May 23rd.
May 29th. Yeah, on all of them, yeah.
Second.
Is there a second? Roll call?
Councilpersons Lembo,
Yes.
Buchanan,
Yes.
Grillo,
Yes.
Kilpatrick,
Yes.
Melendez,
Yes.
Novak.
Yes.
Introduction of ordinance number 411-18, an ordinance of Borough of Saraville, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, amending Chapter 7 of the revised of the Borough Code of the Borough of Saraville entitled Traffic.
Councilman Buchanan?
Mayor, I move the ordinance be approved on first reading, advertised according to law, and a public hearing to be held on May 29, 2018.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Buchanan,
Yes.
Grillo,
Yes.
Kilpatrick,
Yes.
Lembo, Melendez,
Yes.
Novak.
Yes.
Ordinance number 412-18, an ordinance to supplement and amend Chapter 19, Water and Sewer, Section 49, Schedule A, sewer user charges of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Saraville, 1986, as supplemented and amended.
Councilman Grillo?
Thank you, Mayor. I move the ordinance be approved on first reading, advertised according to law, for a public hearing to be held on March 29th, 2018.
May 29th.
I'm sorry, May 29th. Everybody got the number wrong. I got the month wrong. Wow.
Councilpersons Grillo,
Yeah, I guess so.
Buchanan,
Yes.
Kilpatrick,
Yes.
Lembo, Melendez,
Yes.
Novak.
Yes.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to open the public portion for questions or comments on the consent agenda item. Are there any questions or comments? Being no questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to close the public portion
Second.
and adopt, I'm sorry, on roll call vote.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Kilpatrick,
Yes.
Buchanan, Grillo,
Yes.
Lembo,
I just have a question on one, on 2018-155.
Thank you so much.
Does this encompass that amount of money?
Councilman Lembo, with all the changes that we've had with all of our land use and boroughs ordinances, we are so far behind with Chapter 26 with improvements, not improvements, with revisions that we need to really redo the whole thing, almost the whole thing. And that's the proposal that was made by our new planner, Hire Gruhl.
Melendez,
Yes.
Novak.
Yes.
At this time, I'm going to open the public portion for questions or comments. Bill Gavrin?
I know it's been a while since I've been here, and you probably missed me, so I wanted to come back and say to you, first of all, Mayor and the council, I want to thank you very much. Optimum has finally caved in and agreed to settle with me, so I couldn't have done that without you, Mayor, making them come here before the council, and for all of the council members to put some pressure on them, but especially Dan Frankel and Mike DuPont. I mean, they were relentless with calling the Board of Public Utilities and going after them, so I think they finally said we had enough and gave in. So thank you very much for all your support and all your help, and I really do appreciate the hard work that the business administrator and borough attorney put in on that matter. So thank you. I appreciate all your efforts on that. And I hope that when their franchise agreement comes up, you take into account this. That Miss Davis who came here did nothing but lie to you, every single one of you. She said they had a waiver. Well, lo and behold, I finally got the Board of Public Utilities to send me a letter in writing that the Optimum does not, and I repeat, does not have any sort of waiver. That Optimum knows that they are violating the law, and the matter has been referred to the Attorney General's office in New Jersey. But we all know, we read the paper, the Attorney General is too busy worried about illegal people living in New Jersey than worried about the residents who are getting ripped off by the cable company. They're doing nothing for the residents of this state. All they worry about is the illegal people getting free college aid. What about fighting for the people who are getting ripped off by a cable company that knows and is going out of their way to violate the law? Disgraceful New Jersey has become. But anyway, I know that's out of your control. And one last comment. I know we talked about the Lyme disease before, but there is one, I don't know how expensive it would be, but if we reintroduce quail to some of the nature preserve in some of these areas, the quail are one of the natural things that eat ticks. So I don't know if that's something the borough would be interested in looking into. Maybe they can get somebody to give them a price and release some quail out on the well fields and off of Cheesequake Road there. There's some, I think, some good ground that maybe the quail would be able to live in. So again, but I just wanted to come here tonight and really express my gratitude to everyone up here. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim?
And Bill, thanks for coming. Most people just, they never come back to say thank you. A lot of it tonight.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Jim Robinson, 11 Burrell Square. Mayor and members of the council, I'm here with about 20-some, my neighbors, because there's an issue that's of concern to us. We wanted to talk to you about it. Last year, we suggested that you look into purchasing the 4.5 acres on North Ernston Road that were the most heavily treed acres in the borough. And I think last year I distributed blown-up pictures to you so that you could see how heavily treed that area was. We requested that the mayor and council get appraisals for those parcels and for the parcel in Melrose, and you have done that. Those appraisals have come back, and I got to look at those appraisals and do some research on this property that I'm talking about, the 4.5 acres. Early in the 1990s, Mayor McCormick and the planning board zoned that area prime so that housing couldn't be built there. And at that time, Mayor McCormick's dream was that that area would be purchased and added to Kennedy Park. But back then, we had no open space fund as we do now. And in 1989, we put something on the ballot called SAVE, Sensitive Areas Vital to the Environment. And the purpose of SAVE was to raise money, just like the current open space fund, to preserve property from development. Back in 1989, it was a new thing. It was novel. We were ahead of the curve. Nobody else had done this. People were not familiar with it. And in a very short-sighted move, it was defeated. So it didn't become law. Back in I think it was 98 or 99.
98 or 99.
98 or 99, Councilwoman Novak passed another open space fund that did become law, and I think there's about $6 million in that open space fund now, right?
Probably over 7.
Over 7 million, okay, and that's money that we've been collecting every year since then. Now, I went back in my research, I saw aerial photos of this property from 1974 and 1930. It looks the same now as it does then. It's pristine, it's undisturbed. Probably the only change there is the difference in the number of rabbits and squirrels and possums and chipmunks and snakes and eagles and hawks and toads, turtles, turkeys, fox, and deer. And the people who live over there have seen all of those things in that area, and a lot of those things live in that area. And the one thing that I learned about being planning board chairman for a number of years about land is they're not making it anymore. So if you can preserve it, you should preserve it now. And this parcel, this 4.5 acre parcel, is in the geographic center of town. Kennedy Park is actually the geographic center of town. It's adjacent to Kennedy Park. It should be made a part of Kennedy Park, and we have the funds to do this. And those funds, as I said, were established for precisely that reason, to preserve pristine lands from development. It could stay natural. It could become the nature center at Kennedy Park. It could become the trails at Kennedy Park. If you bought it and preserved it, I wouldn't even care if you called it Kennedy O'Brien Park, but it would be the right thing to do. You have the appraisals, you have the funds, and I would respectfully suggest you move forward with purchasing and preserving that land, because I think it's the right thing to do to preserve it now. Thank you.
Good evening, Ruth Ann Mahoney, 2 Gerard Place, Portland. I'm here again. But I agree with Mr. Robinson. The 4+ acres need to be bought by open space. The congestion, yes, the trees and the animals need to be there. The park needs to be made bigger. It's a very busy park. The congestion and the troubles that will come with more building there is not a good thing. The funds are available. It will cost us no money except from the open space. And if they've been saving that for a rainy day, it's here. The rainy day has come. It's time to spend some of that money for a good purpose, for the children, for all of us in Sayreville. Building on that piece of property, there's homes, that are going to be impacted. My home, but there's homes directly on that, right behind, right in front of it. Our neighbors are here in support. They may not all speak to you, but they're here for our support. And I think it's time that money be well spent to purchase that property. Thank you.
Steve?
Thank you. Steve Melineski, 28 Scarlet Drive in Parlin. I guess I'm getting back to Kennedy Park. So it's a question. For the last year, I've been traveling around in Kennedy Park, used to jog there, walk there. The bridges have been unmade and dismantled, blocked off since the middle of almost a year ago. So my question is real simple. Where are we, and why can't we have those bridges done so people can either jog around the park or walk around the park?
Jay, if you would, please.
Mayor, the new bridges are scheduled to be delivered this week, May 17th. They're going to be installed right after that. So hopefully within the next 2 weeks, that'll be taken care of.
That'll be terrific. What took a year?
Well, the original scope of work called for just repairing the existing bridges. So the borough hired a contractor. He came in, started doing repairs, and it was discovered that the bridges couldn't be repaired. They were in poor condition, so they had to be, or we had to order new ones. So there was a change order that was approved last fall. The bridges had to be measured because they had to fit exactly on the existing foundations. It took time to go back to the manufacturer, have him prepare the fabrication drawings. Once they were approved, he had to manufacture the bridges. So unfortunately, that's what took so long. But it is scheduled to be resolved hopefully in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you. That'll be great for the town. May I have one more question? At the special meeting, we discussed the performer for the COA, and we said that was going to get going. Can we get a little status on where we are with that?
Dan?
Yeah, that's on the agenda session.
Steve, if I may, if you don't mind sticking around, we have that on the agenda session, and this
Oh, I'm
way
sorry.
the council people will talk about it.
Terrific. Thank you, council.
Thank you. Ken?
Thank you, Mayor. Ken Olszewski, 108 North Edward Street. I want to talk about a topic that I've been up here talking about a few times before, and that is the broadcast of these council meetings, planning board meetings, Board of Adjustment meetings. I was told months and months ago, after people had said they couldn't hear these meetings, that everything was okay, it was fine. I'm here to tell you tonight it is not fine. It is absolutely not fine, because every place I go in town, people come to me and talk about the fact, oh, I see on TV, but we can't hear anything. We can hear you, usually, but we can't hear anything else. Now, I would hope that our elected officials have heard the same story. If you haven't heard it, I think you ought to start worrying, because you must have lost contact with your constituents. I don't spend a whole lot of time in town that, everybody's walking up to me. I mean, it was twice last week. Once I was coming out of OLV Church on the Holy Day, and once I was coming out of the bakery, or in the bakery, and people brought it up. It's all over. You can't hear the broadcast on TV. You can hear them apparently when you go to YouTube, but a lot of people aren't sophisticated enough. Some people don't have computers. I don't know what the problem is, but I can tell you there is a problem, and I'd like to know what we know about it and what we're doing about it. And I hope before you answer, you're not going to tell me we got some plan for next year, because this you told me was okay 4 or 5 months ago, and I think something needs to be done. It needs to be done for the people who can't make the meetings, the people who are shut-ins, the people who are elderly, the people who are not comfortable coming here. This is democracy in action. They can't get it from the newspapers anymore. There are no newspapers, so when they do get a newspaper, there's nothing in them. They count on this. I can assure you, people are watching it. Now, the question is, what have we done about it, and what is the problem?
Councilman Melendez?
Well, a couple things. No one's ever said they couldn't hear you. Is that true?
I'm sorry?
No one has ever said they could not hear you, right? You can.
Me personally?
Yeah.
Some people have said, I can hear you okay. They haven't all said that. Maybe some of them just skipped that part of it. But everybody says we can't. The person you're very familiar with, he's a part of our party. On the steps of OLV Church the other night said, oh, I see you on TV, but you know you can't hear those meetings.
Yeah. I think part of the problem, and I'm just watching you, you hold your mic very steady, and like the last woman that was up here before does this. So there is technology to fix that. There's better microphones and certain things, but I think part of the problem, seriously, because we did have an outage that one time when I did tell you that it was fixed. There was a broadcast problem, that's why it didn't air, and there was a total dead silence. But what you're witnessing is what I think is happening to most people. They speak and they're not naturally speakers into the microphone. So when they go like this and they look away, right now I'm not being recorded on TV.
Right.
Something as simple as looking into the mic. So we did mention there are some upgrades that we're looking at, part of which is probably putting a permanent microphone on that podium so people can naturally speak. There are better microphones that pick up interference and block out noise. But again, it does take money, it does take an investment, and I'll say it again, there's something that we need to do going forward, but it's not an immediate solution that I can't control people not speaking into the microphone. So that's why I asked you that question, if has anyone not heard you? Because I watch you right now, you're very steady, you're almost like a professional. And most people that come up here aren't. So I'm curious on that, if you can get back to me. But
Well, let me reply to that. First of all, you can't go by me. I've been a public speaker for years, and I've been blessed with a voice that carries, projects well. I think a lot of people can hear the mayor. You know, he is a voice that. But I can tell you, a lot of the professionals, a lot of the people that come to these boards and are sworn in as a professional, you can't hear them. I've sat at Board of Adjustment meetings. Our Board of Adjustment attorney, we had to ask him during the Temple hearing a week or so. Somebody stood up and said, you know, hey, we can't hear you. He wasn't talking in a microphone. He didn't project. I think it will help for the person who's conducting the meetings, and I think we ought to let them know that. And I think the mayor does a reasonable job on it, but you know, he's not sitting here alone. If he doesn't pick it up, I think everybody could say, hey, remember, you've got to talk into the microphone. Maybe a fixed microphone might help. I think some of the equipment, you know, listen, I sit here every meeting and see millions of dollars being spent. So I don't really want to hear the thing, we don't have money. Microphone, sometimes these microphones like the one I'm holding, I see that, you know, they're banging on them, they're changing batteries. It almost reminds me of the old Fisher-Price and Play School microphones that the kids used. Maybe we need better microphones. Don't tell me we can't afford them. I don't know about the things you people up here use. I mean, maybe you don't have to take the whole bite, but you need to do something to help. This is a significant issue for a lot of people in town, and they deserve it. Not me. I'm here at these meetings. I don't watch them. As a matter of fact, when people told me, sometimes I took it with a grain of salt. You told me it was okay, and I figured, well, it's probably okay. Maybe these people have hearing issues, whatnot. No, believe me, that is not it. I can assure you, you have got to have heard it from your constituents. I don't believe there's no one here has heard it. But please, take a look at it. You need to do something around it. Don't put it in a budget for a capital project for next year or 2 years or 3 years. This isn't a lot. I'm not a technical guy. I don't know what the fix is. I could bring somebody here for you to hire and tell you what the fix is. I've talked to people. I don't think this is a lot of money to get something going on this. It's significant. The people of Sayreville deserve it. The next thing I want to bring up.
Ken, you're at 7 minutes.
I'm at 7 minutes. I'll try to do this quickly, Mayor, and thank you very much. I was at a special meeting last week on COA. COA, of course, we're concerned about the overgrowth of the town and issue of building. I found something strange at that meeting. There were about 6 people in the audience. Fewer people than there are at the dais. and I saw a police officer come in for that. Now, I'm not here to tell you, especially in this day and age, about what we ought to do about public security, but I just found that a little bit curious that for 5 or 6 people, we had a police officer here. And if that's the case, if that's a new policy of the borough, then let me tell you something. How about our planning board? How about our Board of Adjustment? How about the Board of Health? How about the Housing Authority? Are we going to have police officers here for them too? I find it a little strange. A couple of people have said to me about this not being able to hear. Is that intentional? Do you think they're doing that intentionally? No, I don't think so, but that's what people are saying. I hope, because we're talking about this land use and the significant overdevelopment problems that we have, I hope that none of this is a matter of intimidation of people to have 5 people in the audience. It just doesn't seem right to me. But I'm going to leave that with you. That's a thought, and I think other people are thinking the same thing. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Yes, Janet.
Janice Benedetto, 1 Thomas Avenue in the Melrose section. As Mr. Robinson was saying, the appraisals are now in. So the Cross Avenue, Oak Street, National Lead property in the Melrose section also was recommended to be purchased as open space. So the residents of the town and the Melrose section are looking for the governing body to proceed with whatever's necessary now to use the over $7 million and obtain whatever grants and other monies possible to start the purchase process to preserve. It's almost 22 acres of land with the same type of wildlife. I won't enumerate it all, but the trees and the bushes and protecting the water table and things of that sort in the area. We need to move ahead. It's taken this long just to get appraisals, and I don't know what the next step is. So maybe somebody can tell me where we go from there, here now.
Michael?
Make sure. Janet, at this point in time, we're currently in litigation. I can't comment as to the negotiations that are going forth, but let it be known that your concerns and desires are certainly on the forefront of all negotiations at this point in time. But at this point in time, I also cannot tell you, the current status of the negotiations because it is litigation. So hopefully we'll have some relatively good news or some news in the immediate future.
All right, now at the last special COA meeting last Monday, you said that by June 28th, parties on both sides need to submit further information to Judge Natale if they have it, and I assume that there's a court session or...
No, that's not what I said.
All right,
what's happening on June 28th, Mr. Serenian and all counsel involved in litigation have until that date to report back to the court as to whether there's any furtherance or any resolution.
All right, and now are there any further dates scheduled after
No.
June 28th?
No, the court
No idea of a court session to give the judge's decision or any other future scheduled court appearances or what have you. So it's just if anybody has any further information.
Correct.
That's the deadline for submitting it.
That's the deadline submitted by the court.
All right. So from the point of view of purchasing the land, can we be doing anything else? Looking for grants for open space to supplement the over $7 million that we haven't spent in years and years and years? Or what's the next step through the open space process?
If I might, again, I'm not going to comment as to that specific property. Let it be known that all efforts, including those that you just mentioned, are being considered and discussed. So if you could just bear with me with respect to this ongoing litigation. I am somewhat handcuffed, so to speak, as to what I can and cannot say because it's litigation. So your questions are poignant. They are internally being discussed. So at that, I can't tell you anything further.
All right, I appreciate that. I wouldn't want to give up our strategy. I want us to win the case.
Again, I want you to know, though, that all your questions are being asked internally.
I appreciate that. Now, another thing from the point of view of things from prior meetings to follow up on, the Cablevision was mentioned. I just got in my current bill that I'm going to have a $9 increase for June per month with no increase in services. When is the Cablevision contract up for negotiation?
It is up now.
What are we doing in regards to trying to get a better deal for our town? I know of people living in Jackson who pay so much less than us, it's not funny. So why is Saraville residents paying so much more than Jackson residents for the same services?
I don't know if Jackson is being, I don't know what Jackson has. If you're telling me Jackson has Optimum?
Right.
Okay. So
Optimum and Cablevision.
It would be helpful if you want to supply me with that and information with the same services, same bill that you have. It will be helpful for me to go and speak with Optimum, okay, about that. Right now, I have we're talking, but we're not talking a lot. One of the things that we're trying to get through was some of the issues we had with Mr. Gavin and Mr. Barlinski that we were trying to get through. We haven't really sat down for a serious negotiation yet on franchise fees, on cost per programming, or anything like that.
What's our deadline for that then?
We don't have a deadline.
All right, so we're working without a contract right
Correct.
now? All right, I don't know that the resident in Jackson is going to be willing to supply me with that information, but if you're in negotiations with Cablevision right now, they should supply you with that information. It shouldn't be my asking a Jackson resident to do so. That's not appropriate, and that's invading their privacy. But Cablevision should, in their negotiation process, be able to if they want the contract, provide you with information. And we also need to maybe be looking at other cable companies to be competitive.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. I'm not familiar with Jackson, but I do know other residents in other towns that have come forth to me, and I've looked at their bill too, because I agree with you. I have Optimum, and I'm looking at my rates going up, and it seems like a lot of towns that have lower rates than what we do have competition within that area. And I think obviously we do realize that I agree. I've already tasked Mr. Frankel with that. One of the problems that we have is I believe Verizon has come back to you multiple times and said that they're not willing to invest the infrastructure cost in order to bring Verizon into this area, which is
Correct.
frustrating.
Correct.
Trust me, Dan is sick of hearing me come to his door saying, make these people come here, and quite frankly, they say they don't want to invest their dollars, which is, it's really quite obnoxious to me that we have to settle for only one, and in some areas, 2 providers, because Verizon does have some accessibility here. But that was one of my frustrations. Now, I'm not certain if Jackson also has, I think they have maybe Comcast. Maybe that's one of the reasons why their rates are slightly lower, because it's not quite the monopoly we see here.
Right, and also, you know, if you threaten to cancel and you go to their retention department, they know you don't have very many options.
I know, it's terrible.
So it doesn't give you a lot of negotiating power. And to be honest with you, the $9 increase, I'm not getting anything more for it. $9 over a year is another $84 for nothing. Absolutely nothing.
I went through the exact same analysis when I just got mine, and my husband and I sat down and I said, this is ridiculous, and then Dan has to deal with my phone call too. He's I'm in the same
And I
boat.
just made a mistake in my math. It's $108 more a year. I apologize for my lack of multiplication accuracy.
But trust me,
for
I
absolutely nothing. So.
Well, satellite TV is an option. I don't know if you looked at DirecTV or Dish. There's 2. Dish Network too.
Right, but then you also have to get a different internet carrier, if you have your phone service with them and what have you. It should be that if the contract's up for negotiation, we're better business people and we negotiate a better deal and what have you, for everybody's benefit in the town. So,
would it be possible to bring in another provider? How would that work? Would they have to run their own lines?
I don't think you could bring another cable provider. That's just a state. You just can't. You can bring in Fios, which that's up to Verizon.
Right,
or
Fios is-
satellite.
They have
but
been
there's-
expanding.
They
I mean,
don't allow, yeah,
They
in
expanded it
certain
in
towns.
President's Park a month or two ago, but we couldn't bring in another
It's fiber,
provider.
right? It's a fiber infrastructure they have to build in, and they look at the cost. And I don't think they're putting fiber anywhere anymore. I use DirecTV.
You're the technology person. Is this ever going to go wireless, where you don't need any of these lines?
Satellite. It's pretty much the only option. I mean, the problem is the internet. Like she said, you get triple play, and you get a better deal with.
Yeah.
Like I have internet only, but I use DirecTV. I find it cheaper, and you get more value for the number of channels. But if you want one of the packages, which is usually only complimentary for the first year, it's a better deal. But long term,
Yeah, then they catch up to you anyway.
One other thing regarding the TV, I would really ask all of you to try Channel 15 and try to listen to it and try to view it. The planning board meetings, I've had people say to me that, like was just mentioned, do they not want us to hear what's going on? You have to turn your TV up as much as it goes, maximum, and then struggle and like sit right in front of the TV to hear it on the planning board meetings. So there's variation from meeting to meeting. So residents have said, is it really that they don't want us to hear it? Because some meetings we can hear things, some meetings we can't. And it depends upon who the body is that's meeting in this room as to whether you can hear properly. It's not only the person at the podium. Try listening to the planning board meetings. I have to turn my TV up to maximum and sit right in front of it and then barely hear it.
Janice, we're at 10.5 minutes.
Right, but other people are
understand.
communicating too.
I
And one other thing, then I'll go quickly, is we had the engineer here from the MCUA, and a meeting was supposed to be set up. What's the progress on setting up the meeting?
Dan?
Can you wait till the agenda session so we can discuss that too?
Okay, then the other thing I would suggest that we put out the agenda session agendas on paper at the desk so we don't bother you with things ahead of
You're
time.
not bothering us, I'm just saying,
Well,
can you wait?
it was more efficient when we did that when I first started attending these meetings last June. The other thing that's missing from the table is that we're interested in the disbursements by vendor. There's a whole stack by account. But by vendor is what's really useful to us. We appreciate both, but we need more by vendor also. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate all of your assistance, and then we'll wait till the second session.
Thank you, Janice.
Hey, Terry, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir. Come up.
Is there a way to turn up
Come on.
or down the volume on the mics? Is there any way to do that?
There is, but IT tells me that sometimes when you talk about the mics up here or...
Up here, no, the ones up here.
You get...
Good evening. Pete Gitlitz
Yeah.
from 2
Hold on, everyone.
Feedback.
We have a resident. Pete, could you repeat your name and address, please?
Yes, Pete Gitlitz, 2 Ardsley in Parlin. It's the road away from Ernst, just one over on Jackson Avenue. Relating to the block 367.01, lot 1, we have an open space forest just about in the middle of Parlin and next to Kennedy Park. So I really can't think of a better use for available open space funds than to acquire the property for Sayreville. Kennedy Park does represent a really significant attraction in Parlin, and having a lot of additional development would really degrade the park, in my opinion. Also, anyone who drives up and down North Ernston Road would certainly or likely have a much more positive impression of Sayreville in general to drive by a partial forest for a couple of minutes, even though it's a short distance away. It would really gives a better impression of the town in general. And also the area north of the park is environmentally sensitive and evidently a habitat for wildlife. So I really urge the use of the open open space funds for that purpose. I think it would really be an excellent attribution for the town and a real benefit for all the residents of the town. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Peter. Are there any other questions or comments? Ken?
Ken Olszewski, 108 North Edward. I'll be quick, Mayor. I just want to confirm what Janice said about people watching the meetings. That's exactly what they tell me. You have to turn the volume up all the way in most instances to hear most of the borough meetings, and it applies to all of the borough meetings. So that's exactly part of the problem. She's enumerated very well. The MCUA meeting, which you said you're going to talk about later on, just one quick comment on the meeting. I'm glad you got the MCUA here, Mayor. I'm disappointed that there was not an operations person from the MCUA rather than just a consultant who didn't really know couldn't respond to many of the questions that were answered. For instance, it was brought up at the dais, I brought it up, about the doors being open. He didn't know anything about that. He couldn't reply to that. And thank God Janice brought that up too. Nobody else brought it up to that point. But it's a significant issue. And it looks like he came in and they did a dog and pony show without the pony. So really, when you send a consultant, that's not really doing the job. So I hope the next meeting that's scheduled that there'll be an operations person from the MCUA so we can get some real answers from those people. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Being no other questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We're going to adjourn, and then we'll start up again on the agenda session. We'll probably take a 5-minute break.
Need a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
There you go.
13th? Let me check. I put it in my phone as soon as I saw it.
That's what I'm saying, you want to maybe something about.
What is the difference in the technology between when it comes over the cable and when it comes over the internet? Well,
Like
yeah.
YouTube versus,
Oh, no, I think it's a transmission issue, because if you look at it on your laptop, it's great. Council people, if you would please, we're going to start the meeting up. Where is the...
Get the Oscar on that one, and the Oscar goes too.
Okay.
Well, no, I was gonna do it.
Big bunch.
I'll do it as soon as the mayor opens.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm going to open the agenda portion of the meeting. Would we all stand for a salute to our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Terry, statement of publication, please.
Yes, Mayor, take notice that this agenda session, meeting of the Mayor and Borough Council being held on this 14th day of May 2018 has been advertised and posted in accordance with Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975.
Roll call.
Councilpersons Buchanan. Here. Grillo.
Here.
Kilpatrick. Lembo.
Here.
Melendez.
Here.
Novak.
Here.
Okay, as I call out the ordinance number, if you have a question or comment, please stop me. 407-18, 408-18, 409-18, 410-18, 411-18, 412-18. Going to committee reports, Administration and Finance, Councilwoman Novak.
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the Board of Education minutes for April 17th, 2018.
Second.
Okay, I'd like approval for the applications under B 1 and 2, the PTO of Truman and RJC Charities, Inc.
Any objection? Next item.
Under C 1, 2, and 3, request received from the tax collector for resolution authorizing the refunds of a portion of the taxes due to the approval of 100% disability veterans tax exemption.
Is there any objection? Anything else, Councilwoman?
Nothing at this time, Mayor. Progress.
Thank you. Planning and Zoning, Councilman Limbo.
Thank you, Mayor. Move the following minutes be received and filed. Serve Board of Adjustment minutes for March of 28th, 2018.
Second.
Is there anything else?
That's all we have this evening, Mayor, other than that, progress.
Thank you. Public Safety, Councilman Buchanan.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the following minutes be received and filed. Sarah Board of Health, minutes of May 3rd, 2018.
Is there a second?
Second.
Next item.
Letter D, if everything's in order, I'd like to have that approved, 1, 2, and 3.
Any objections? Next item.
Letter C, firefighter application for Leanne Bodnar, also approved.
Any objections? Anything else, Councilman? Thank you. Recreation, Councilman Melendez.
Thank you, Mayor. Item A, the Recreation Advisory Board minutes of April 5th, 2018, receive and file.
Anything else, Councilman?
Just a couple things on recreation. This Saturday is the fishing derby, Kennedy Park Lake at, I believe it starts at 8 a.m. Bring your fishing poles and your children. It's all ages. It's a lot of fun, even in the rain. It rained last year. And we got soaking wet, but kids caught a lot of fish, so
Yeah.
that's a nice time to. Recreation does a great job on that. The just to follow back up on Ken with the microphone, it is something that is an issue. And what I do notice with the people that do speak up here, the professionals that come up here every week, you do hold the microphone. And at the planning board meetings, I've noticed a few of the people, they tend to sit back like this. And so maybe, Terry, we could send a memo out to all boards and all people who use these microphones up here to actually focus on, I know it sounds silly, but I think if you pay attention to what you're doing and don't sit back and lean like this, you naturally will be able to pick up the microphone. And there are some long-term solutions we're looking at, and it's not that I haven't acted on priorities. I have a list of technology projects that are in play, one of which I'll speak to in a minute. And part of it, we're talking about redoing the furniture up here and making it more of a situation where you could fit, because I actually can't fit in this little seat up here. So we will look into that. We were thinking about possibly, and I think someone told me in the old days there used to be a permanent microphone back in the 50s up there. So,
that long.
so that may help. That may force people into speaking into the microphone. But if you do notice, I mean, now I'm just conscious every time Ken comes to me, I watch his hand. It doesn't move, not even an inch. But the last person who came up, he naturally just looked away. So. And I think what happens on YouTube, the transmission, the mayor was just asking me, it's just better quality over digital versus analog.
Right.
But again, I understand the severity of this. One quick fix will be seriously talking to the microphone, because it's naturally. And long term, we will look at better microphones. But part of what I want to do too, and we're looking at different ideas, is we want to put a screen up here for the viewers. If you ever go to Old Bridge, their council meetings, they actually have screens up for their council people to actually look at presentations, something that the clerk. But again, if we're going to invest money and time, I want to do it right so it lasts for the next 50 years. Like that recorder system you have there. Looks like it's in my mom's house.
This is my
But
digital. It's my backup.
The backup. But it is a priority, and I understand the severity. The other thing that I'm going to send the council, about, I think it was 6 months ago, we brought in a consultant to assess our security.
Talking to you, Mike.
Yeah, I do it too, and I speak very low, so my wife yells at me all the time. She's like, "We can't hear you." I don't have her voice, but the assessment that we did was to bring in and review our security systems in town. We started with the police department, where we upgraded their camera system. So internally in the police department, it's all Wi-Fi cameras now, and they have a full console. They can see everything that's going on in PD, and we linked to the first place we did was the senior center. So that's up and running. The next thing that we have to do that's really important, and I'm going to be sharing, I have a 30-page assessment document that you as the chairman of water, Steve, and everyone. It's just an overall view of the security that we need at the water treatment. That includes the maintenance facility, the admin building, the mechanical sites testing area, and then we have 3 bodies of water. I think there's one of them which people swim in that people have done for years and don't realize that Doggy Park is our backup reservoir for drinking. So there's a couple of approaches with this. There's a physical approach with fencing, which sounds simple, but it's expensive and necessary. So that's in the report too. And the other thing is there will be digital security. So what the consultant does is basically put together a list of needs and wants and requirements. And then with that, we'll go out to market to find the best, at least on the technology side, the best solution to solve that. So I didn't want to, the report just finished on Friday, so before I introduce it and we talk about how we're going to pay for it and different options, I want to send it to the council and the mayor to review. So I'd like to have it on the next agenda session for official discussion, but I'm just giving a pre-warning now so we could spend some time over the next 2 weeks looking at it, because it is a hefty investment. It's something that we have to do. The EPA and federal are really looking at the severity of water, and thank God in this country we haven't heard that happening. And Homeland Security, and God forbid, Sarah won't be the first place that happens. So I just want to kind of give everybody a heads up, because it's a big problem. It's an investment, but it's something that with IT and with physical security, I think we'll be able to solve. And I think, other than speaking into the microphone, which if we could send out a reminder memo, so I do it too. And in long term, we'll come up with a better solution. But any feedback will be important, so please, Ken, you can come up and yell at me every week. I'll listen. But it's very important. Like I'm gonna actually figure out if there's a better way with the transmission on the cable TV side. I doubt it, but I'll definitely look into that. So with that, progress.
Thank you, Councilman. Water and Sewer and Environmental, Councilman Grillo.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no minutes or departmental reports. I do want to thank Councilman Melendez for putting forward the work that's required to look into what is a very sensitive and difficult security situation regarding our water system. That's something our committee's talked about. We talked about it in the budget, so looking forward to reading that. And it's going to be a long-term capital investment, but it absolutely needs to be done. Just one item, Mayor. I posted on my social media this weekend. My wife and I were hiking at the Capic Preserve, and we came upon a couple that had actually found a dog that had been left in a ditch to die because it had mouth cancer. And so the couple found it and brought it in. But I just wanted to tell people that that is not the way to deal with an injured animal, especially a pet. We have resources in this town. And so to see that up close was very disturbing. But we do have a police department. We have animal rescue groups. So please spread the word, because that happened in our town. My wife and I, regular, normal people that you see every day, walked and saw a dog that had been left to die because it had a tumor. And so just if you know of anybody that's mistreating an animal, or you know of anybody that doesn't know how to handle a sick animal, remind them that that's not the way to do this, to go and speak to our law enforcement, our animal control officer. We need to have more dignity than that. We should treat our neighbors and our pets with dignity. So it happened in our town. It was disturbing, and I hope it never happens again. And I implore you all to spread the word. That's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Public Works, Council President Kilpatrick.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the following minutes and reports to be received and filed. The Saraville Rent Leveling Board minutes of May 8th, 2018.
Second.
Thank you. And a request for a block party received from Deborah DeVicchio to be held on June 23rd, 2018 on a dead-end street of Stevens Avenue from 10 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. I did see the paperwork in here. Everything's good to go, Terry?
Everything appears to be in order, yes.
Is there an objection? Okay. No objection. Anything else, Council President?
Other than that, progress. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Business Administrator's report.
Thank you, Mayor. A request received from the construction official to amend ordinance 12-1.3 construction fees.
Next item.
Authorization to award a contract for document scanning to AccuScan of Edgewater, New Jersey through the ESCNJ Cooperative Contract 16/17-48 in the amount not to exceed $31,531.65.
Next item.
In your packet is a report received from Sarah designating Crossman/Mako property, Block 249, Lot 1, Block 250, Lot 1, Block 251, Lot 1, as a non-condemnation area in need of redevelopment. If we agree, we need to forward it to the planning board for their formal determination.
Why, after all this time, are we sending this for redevelopment?
This was the letter received from Chairman Ambrosios that we forwarded to the planning board.
Yeah, but, I mean, we've been in litigation for a very long time, and now, after it's all said and done, they want to go to redevelopment. You would normally go to redevelopment in the beginning. It sounds like they're not happy with the settlement, and they're looking to circumvent the law.
Mayor, I don't know if it's circumvention. We also are in a mediation proceedings, which our lawyer is involved with, and I was involved with the meeting. This did not come, this came in the midst of even that mediation is the time frame, but that's what was asked for the chairman.
Well, is there any reason why we have to act on that quickly?
Well, the council asked to send it to get the recommendation from Sarah, and then the next step
Yeah, but
is.
why are we doing this after all these years of litigation?
Because it fits the criteria?
Fits the
No,
criteria for
no,
redevelopment.
no.
So does Route 35. I'd like to see us take action on Route 35.
So would I.
You know, then let's put that on the agenda for the next meeting for discussion. I mean, like I said, this has been hashed out in the courts for years. I don't know what exactly our, you know, you have to give in this more thought, what exactly our gain is by doing this, but Route 35, there's certainly a tremendous gain by deeming that in need of redevelopment.
Well, it's up to the council. We made the recommendation to send it to Sarah. Sarah sent it back to us. Now, I think we should follow Sarah's recommendation and send it to the planning board.
I would be in I'm unsure about this because we have been in litigation so long, and Mako won the litigation, and now it's not enough, and now they want to go into redevelopment where they have even greater flexibility for developing the parcel.
No, I think they have less flexibility with this,
don't
because
think so.
Sarah has the final determination.
Absolutely.
I don't
Sarah would
know.
be able to negotiate
know.
then at that point. It does fit the area in need of redevelopment. Isn't that what we sent it over to
Yes.
Sarah to be
I
in?
think you're going to get all warehouses and no housing.
Well, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing.
Well, then I would vote for this, Vicky.
Oh, I definitely would. What's the plan over there currently? Is it, how many units would that be in housing?
207.
207 units in addition to
3.
what would be coming in based on whatever COA settlement gets done, and 0 of these units would be affordable housing under the litigation, the way that it came in. So, I don't know. Warehousing brings a couple of positives from what I've been able to research on this. It brings in rateables and it brings in jobs. What it doesn't bring in is children, and
You know, Vicky,
That's
for
a
somebody that makes their living teaching children, I wouldn't be so quick to dismiss them. But
whoa, whoa,
that
whoa, whoa,
being,
whoa. What I don't, whoa, I have been 17-year-long educator in this town of Sayreville, where I graduated in 1996, where my children currently go. What I am watching happen in my school, at the middle school, every single year, is an increased number of students that is beyond the capacity of any of our buildings. My daughter, who is 9 years old, currently in 4th grade at the Samsel Upper Elementary School, will be the largest class that Sayreville has ever seen. There we go, fellow parent over there. For me to turn around and say, I want more housing, is a disservice to the students that are currently in this town, because we do not have the resources, we do not have the buildings, we do not have the infrastructure, we do not have the staff in order to accommodate the education that needs to happen now for the kids that are currently here. Now I'm looking out at educational support professionals in this audience right now. I'm looking out at teachers from other districts, and they will tell you, if you want to cripple a town and you want to turn around and make it absolutely unlivable here, if you want to make the tax burden completely insurmountable, because the Board of Education will have to continue to raise the taxes needed in order to educate these kids, then by all means, Mayor, continue to support over 200 more homes in that particular area. I don't know when enough is enough, Mayor. I don't know the last time you were in our classrooms. I don't know the last time that you came in to see 20, 30 or more kids having to fit inside a classroom. I don't know if you have seen the conditions of our books and the tremendous job that our Board of Education has to do in order to try and balance a budget. But if that is what this particular statement on this piece of paper is, which is to turn around and push that Mako property into a redevelopment zone to eliminate housing and turn around and bring in rateables and jobs, well, what do we need to do? Make a motion right now so that we can push this forward to the planning board? Because if that is it, I make a motion right now that we turn around and recommend this over to the planning board to be voted on and then come back to this council. Do I have a second on that
there's
if
a
needed?
motion made, is there a second?
Can I have a question before a second?
I already.
Certainly.
I'm not politicizing, I have a genuine question. This plan calls for residential as written. So what would be reviewed by the planning board? The existing plan or a plan for all warehousing?
I'll let the attorney answer that.
I think the property that, or we did a fiscal impact study a while ago, and that had suggested that the numbers support the warehousing. The Mako also did a fiscal impact study a number of, I think a year ago or so, which the fiscal impact study also supported warehousing. So this is going back to the planning board for the determination as to whether it is or fits the determination of an area of redevelopment.
So Sarah is asking the council to advance this to the planning board to incentivize a developer to build warehouses on the site.
Well, I'm not quite sure if that's the case. I don't think incentivize. I think that is.
Area and redevelopment would be an incentive.
Well, I
correct?
think what they're trying to do is have the planning board make a formative determination as to whether it buys or believes in the arguments submitted as to the fiscal impact study.
So we're asking their opinion whether or not they agree with this redevelopment status. So the planning board will turn around and review this, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, that they will turn around and they will review this. They will then make a determination as a body whether or not they feel that this fits the redevelopment criteria. They'll then bring it to us, and then we will have to make a determination whether we want to agree with the planning board's determination or whether we want to act on our own in some other capacity. Is that accurate?
That's correct. I think they're going to hold a hearing as to whether it meets the criteria with regard to a area in need of redevelopment.
So the turnaround right now and stop this from going there, where we're just asking their opinion, would be counterproductive and in essence leaving this in limbo to just sit based on what the settlement was a number of years ago. So this would actually limit the discussion to be had by that planning board to review new fiscal studies that were done.
I think what you're trying to do is enhance the argument as to the criteria assessment that's set forth on page 13 of this report that's dated May 3rd, 2018, as to whether this property does fit the requirements of area in need of redevelopment. So that's what you're trying
So I understand. So this is not asking the planning board to make a decision as to what should go there.
No.
Right.
This is just simply saying, you know, on page 13, there are certain requirements, criteria necessary for determination as to an area of redevelopment.
What are those requirements?
There's multiple requirements that could fit.
No, let's go over them.
Okay.
Well, again, it's outlined in page 13 of your
Page
report, and it says the generality of buildings are substandard, unsafe, unsanitary, dilapidated, or obsolescent.
There are no buildings on the property.
Mayor, if you read the report, it says we meet 3 of the criteria, and you only need to meet 1.
Okay, so it's going to meet it, because it certainly has lain fallow for over 10 years. All that being said, if I may have the microphone, in my tenure as mayor, I've had a number of people come to discuss warehousing, and this is the reality of warehousing. Because of the expansion of Port Elizabeth, they now have the capacity to bring in ships that have well over 10,000 containers. So New Jersey has a shortage. New Jersey will become a state of distribution, all right? And what we have a shortage of at the moment is warehouses. Warehouses as a rateable are not a great rateable, because it's basically 4 walls and an empty space. It's like a power plant. You can't tax what's inside the power plant. So you're basically taxing 4 walls, a roof, and a floor. That's it. There's no added value to the building. So it's not a great rateable. And in my experience in talking to the people who are going to develop different, matter of fact, the National Lead site, originally there were a lot of people that wanted to make that all warehousing. And the problem with that is the types of job they bring are generally lower paying. So essentially anyone working there cannot afford to live in Sayreville, perhaps if they're on the management side, but the average worker couldn't afford to live in Sayreville. So we're bringing in a lower quality of a rateable, and we're not providing an opportunity of employment for Sayreville residents. On top of that, we have some extraordinarily old housing stock in Sayreville. And, you know, if you take a look at Town Lake, it's new housing stock, it's larger. They're not filling up those homes with children. That doesn't seem to, I mean, Steve would be better able to answer this with the current stats on homes and children. My personal opinion has always been we get more children from the zoning board, where you take a smaller existing home and you add an addition, because they're adding additions for bedrooms for more children in general, not always. The other thing is we have some very old schools, and it's like everything is predicated that we're never going to spend another dime on a new school, and that we're going to continue to work out of schools that are 50 years old. One of them, I think Wilson's well over 60. and they need to be replaced, quite frankly. You know, you can only get so much. They're past the point of usefulness. And from the teachers and educators I talk to, they say that some of the buildings are not adequate. The other thing, when 30 years ago in Sayreville, there was a very large decline of school-age children because a lot of the people that had come here, particularly the veterans from World War II, they had their children, they grew up, the parents continued to live here, but there weren't a lot of kids, and they were closing down schools. And all the projections by all the experts then was that we would be closing more and more schools, and we would be going to a very low student enrollment. The town I grew up in across the river, Metuchen, when I was at the bulge of the baby boom. I was born in 1953. I had the largest graduating class. I was talking to educators several months ago, and they told me there aren't 100 seniors graduating this year in Metuchen. So it depends where you live and where the cycle is. I would have to say I think it's inherent. It's in the interest of Sayreville to invest in new school structures. I think any town that does not naturally replace older housing stock with newer housing stock does not have a good future, because the homes that were built for the returning GI, it was $200 down, and you came into a house. I think the homes in Laurel Park were about $8,000, $9,000, Ed, in the 50s. Which was affordable for a returning GI for the income at that time. They're about 1,200 square feet. Most of them have no basement, there's no sidewalk, there's no garage.
I grew up there, Mayor. I lived on Cedar Terrace, 43.
Okay.
My parents are still there.
Okay.
I'm well aware of Laurel
Well,
Park.
can I finish, Vicky, or will
No,
you not
I'm
be
trying
able
to follow
to
you, Mayor.
control
Go ahead. I'm
interrupting?
very curious to hear what else you have
Well,
to say.
if you would sit back.
Mayor, I think we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Mary, if you would allow, as I have
Do you have the
allowed
5-minute
you-
limit, Mayor?
Mary, I don't think you and Vicky have ever practiced that.
I haven't been able to get a word in
That being
edgewise
said, I don't have a natural abhorrence to new homes because I know they will be replacing a lot of the older housing stock. We have a real issue with when I talk to realtors, this is what they tell me. They said people come to Sayreville to buy the first home. Newlyweds, they're gonna buy the first home. They may buy the second home, but by the time they're older and they're in their careers and they want a larger home, there's very limited ability here, and they'll move. I'm not sure where they move. Monroe was pretty attractive 10 years ago to a lot of people. I know a lot of people bought larger homes, larger parcels in Monroe. This is America, and you're most certainly able to do that. But we have an underinvestment in the physical structures in our schools, and I think this fear, this abject fear that we have about any kind of housing is self-defeating. And that's my personal opinion. So I've never had this fear of 200 homes going on the Mako parcel any more than I had fear of the Town Lake development. I just wanted something that was appealing, attractive, was a compliment to our town, and they would bring it in. So I'm not sure what the average tax is in Town Lake, but I thank them for paying it. I know in Patriot Hills, which is on the other side of Reflections, Mary, if you could just for
Mayor,
once
you gotta have
practice
reached
good
your
manners.
5 minutes.
Just for once
You're
practice.
pontificating here about stuff that
Practice
makes
good.
no sense.
I'm going to send you a subscription to Emily Post. That being
I
said,
think she's dead.
they pay significant higher taxes and nice homes, large homes, but I don't see 10 kids in a home. Could be wrong. But again, I don't see any reason why we have this fear of new homes, because if we don't get new homes, then we're gonna go backwards as a community, because there'll be no new life here, no new opportunity, and we won't have the mix of people that you need to make Sayreville vibrant and to have a vibrant future.
Mayor,
Mayor, let me just say, I want to thank you for your very long explanation of why you are in fact in favor of as much housing that can come into our town. I thank you for putting on the record the last, I don't know, 10 or 15 or maybe 20 minutes of that. It was interesting to hear you say that the new housing that you were in favor of is in some way, shape, or form replacing old housing. I have to be honest with you.
I haven't seen anything
Others
come down.
than the horrific situation that we had happen over here when Hurricane Sandy hit, I really don't see any of our older housing stock being taken down. I don't see it being, knocked down so that way this new housing stock can now replace it. That's not what's happening here in Sayreville. What we see happening is our older housing stock is remaining, and newer housing stock continues to be added on top of that. What I do see is class enrollments, 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade, ballooning to nearly 500 children per class. As I mentioned earlier, my children came out of Wilson School just recently. Like I said, my oldest is in 5th grade. My youngest is in 4th grade, and her class is, in fact, the largest class that we have seen in, I don't even know when. I think it's the largest class that we have seen ever in the history of Sayreville. I do see the bodies jammed together wall to wall as they're trying to make their way to and from classes, both at the high school and at the middle school and at the elementary schools. And I do listen to the Blue Ribbon Committee that was formed at the Board of Education in order to try and address the overcrowding and overpopulation that the housing that you are in favor of, Mayor, is going to bring. And quite frankly, we, as a taxpayer, that's right, the same people that are moving into these homes are faced with the burden of all of the cost to educate these children, to bring in the new infrastructure needed for these schools. And as we build more housing, what's interesting, and I know you're a proponent because you said we need to invest in newer schools, we have no space to put them. Because as I believe it was Jim Robinson who said very eloquently, they're not making any more land. So as we continue to build and build and build and build and build, we have to try and come up with very creative ways in order to handle the mass number of bodies and students that are coming in. Now, I don't know when the last time you visited a school or the last time that you spoke or watched the Board of Education meeting, but this is of critical importance, is how do we educate this many people safely, effectively, and to the best level that we can. And unfortunately, what I'm starting to see as a trend is our school ratings have actually been dropping. And one of the ways that that happens, ladies and gentlemen, is when you can't provide the individual one-on-one type of attention that is needed per student. And it's very difficult to do. It's very taxing to do as an educator when your classroom size is ballooning closer to 30 rather than going down. We have literally before us, all we're asking to do is to take this report that states that the Mako piece of property is an area in need of redevelopment. That's all we're asking the planning board to do, is to review this. Before us, only a couple of meetings ago, you had a financial expert come up and explain to you the cost ramifications of housing being brought in as one option over there, the 200 plus homes, and what the warehousing option would be, which, by the way, the 200 plus homes, the plan is for both warehousing and 200 plus homes. That's the way that that settlement is currently put together. You would be getting both. We would be getting 200 plus homes plus warehousing. Now, I don't want to get ahead of myself, because all we're asking the planning board to do is to turn around and determine whether they feel that this is an area in need of redevelopment based on this plan. They will then turn around and put their opinion to us. We can either turn around and accept their opinion that it fits the redevelopment plan, and we can either accept it or deny it. And then, at another junction, we will have to make a determination as a council whether we want to move forward with potentially doing all warehousing or a mixed type of development, which would be 200-plus housing and warehousing. Now, Mayor, you made it very clear that you are in favor of that, and I also believe that the chairperson of the planning board has come up already in reference to this topic a handful of months ago, stating that he, in fact, wanted to see this become a housing 200-plus and the warehousing. All I'm doing is putting on the record, only because you brought out that I was an educator, my personal feelings. I stand behind them. I will stand behind them until the day that this is brought before us. I look out again at my fellow parents. I look out at my students every single day, and I will continue to fight for smart planning that is not going to overburden the taxpayer, overburden our schools, potentially bring in ratables, and while they may be low-paying jobs, I do know that many of our students, many of our high school students, many of our special needs students, which could actually use these type of hands-on, early start, this would be an opportunity for kids here in this town to get to get involved in employment opportunities right here in their town. That's my opinion. I do believe that I may have gone over my time as well, but Mayor, I'm still trying to put the pieces together to exactly what you were saying. It's not quite clear to me, but you did make it abundantly clear that you are in fact in favor of additional housing.
No, I have a few things to say. Number one, again, as Ms. Kilpatrick said, you were getting way ahead of yourself. This is strictly to get their opinion on an area in need of redevelopment. Secondly, our planning board, and mind you, the mayor is in charge of the planning board, sued Peter Marco because they wanted warehouses and they didn't want the homes. Mayor, you were, 1.3 million, I believe, was spent, and now all of a sudden he won. He won the right to keep it the way it was, which is 207 homes, 3 small warehouses. He's asking if it's in need of redevelopment. In that case, maybe he'll put in all warehouses. In all of my travels around this town, whether it be as Mary Novak mother, Mary Novak grandmother, Mary Novak parishioner at OLV, Mary Novak council person, Mary Novak first aider, I never heard one person say to me, hey, build more houses. The school, what's going to happen to everybody's houses here when our education hits the toilet? Everybody's property values is going to go down. I have never heard anybody asking for that, but all of this is irrelevant to what we were asked to do here tonight.
Well, and Mary,
You made a motion, I seconded.
thank you. I was just going to remind you that the motion was brought and seconded, so I think at this
Now,
point.
wait a minute, if I remember right, Mary, I thought you were the one that said that we weren't gonna, I mean, you guys are gonna vote for this anyway, all that being said, but I thought it was your golden rule that we weren't supposed to take action in the agenda session. Of course, this seems to be the
Mayor,
bum's rush.
this isn't action, this is just forwarding this. We discussed this at the last
Normally, this would go to
meeting.
the next meeting, but I understand.
No, that's not
I
true,
can spot
Mayor.
a bum's rush when I see it.
Okay, but that'll be on the next meeting. Well, that's what we're asking for, a
Ladies,
resolution to put
ladies,
it on to the next
you
agenda.
will get what you
That
vote
is
for.
procedure, Mayor.
So-
You will get what you
After
vote
all
for.
these years, you think you'd know procedure.
Tara, can we get a roll call on that? The motion to have a resolution for next meeting in order to refer to the planning board?
Well, which is your motion, Vicky?
Well, that was the original motion.
That was the original, okay, so we'll make
That's
that
all
the
that's being
original
asked,
motion.
is to refer
So
this
there's
over the planning
an
board.
original motion and a second to the original motion.
Terry?
Are there any other comments?
No, I think these were pretty interesting.
Okay. So we'll do a roll call.
Councilpersons Kilpatrick?
Yes.
Buchanan? Grillo?
Yes, with comment. I think this site is critical enough that it definitely needs some discussion. Still a little iffy on whether this needs to be incentivized for development. I guess that's the planning board's job. So I'm eager to see what their report is. But I do want to echo what Councilman Lembo said. If this is in need of redevelopment, then Route 35 in Morgan is absolutely in need of redevelopment. Sarah has refused to act on that, even though it's been requested. I hope that they will come to their better senses and make a recommendation that Route 35 is considered an area in need of redevelopment. So I vote yes, but with those things noted. Thank you.
Limbo?
Sounds like another no-win situation for us, but I'll support for now taking it to the planning board, but
Well, this will just be a resolution on for the next meeting.
Yeah, for the resolution, and I would like at the next meeting discussion on Route 35, doing the same for Route 35.
Melendez?
Yes.
Novak?
Yes.
Okay. Dan?
Okay, Mayor?
Next item.
In your packet, there's a proposal received from Higher Gruel for a fiscal impact assessment pro forma. So I'm going to read just briefly, not the whole thing, the letter from Higher Gruel, that we're pleased to submit this proposal to prepare a fiscal impact assessment at the current iteration of the borough's proposed affordable housing settlement. As you know, we currently serve as the borough's planners and are well-versed in the status of the ongoing affordable housing negotiations and proposed settlement. We propose the preparation of a fiscal impact assessment of the proposed affordable housing settlement that evaluates each of the proposed development sites and the number of market rate and affordable units proposed within each development. We intend to utilize the development pro forma data that has been provided to determine accurate valuation of the projects and potential tax revenues. They could do this study in a range of around 3 to 4 weeks, and the estimated cost would be $15,000, no more than.
Could we as a council just see a project outline before they begin? Just so we can all chime
The
in.
other thing, I'd like to see who's going to pay for this and how it will be allocated to the different developers in their fee assessments.
Okay.
Is that
I
something that's typically done,
would be
Steve?
opposed to the borough paying for this.
He's asking, are we taking it out of our capital budget, or are we somehow going to bill the developers for this?
I think we need to bill the developers. Why are we paying for this?
But which developer do you build?
Yeah.
But aren't we collecting
David?
developer fees now going forward?
Yeah, we don't have, well, we have developer fees, but we don't have any developments to collect those fees.
Yeah, the development
So, I mean-
didn't occur
But
yet, so
you
we're not
understand what
collecting
I'm
any
saying?
monies.
Why are we?
I mean, are we
This
talking?
should be a normal
No,
developer fee.
I understand philosophically what you're saying, but I think, should we put it up front and then include that we have to make that money up once these developer fees are collected?
I think that, quite honestly, the best request that Steve just mentioned was a request for a project outline that outlines the
You define that, yeah, what does that entail,
a
please?
project outline's gonna say, okay, listen, we're gonna go through the maps, it's gonna cost you $2,500. We're gonna go walk the neighborhoods, it's gonna cost you $1,000. So it's an outline of all of the projects they're gonna do to get this done.
But tonight we're approving a not to exceed of $15,000 to do the assessment, right? And what
So
you're asking, Steve,
The
is...
project outline is just to come up with a cost of what it would be to actually do this?
Yeah, I'm curious as to what they're going, they seem to have a structure in place based on previous work of what they're going to analyze. I think we should all look at it before they begin, so that we don't end up a month from now saying, oh, I actually wanted to know about this issue, or I want to know about this issue. At least it gives us a chance to chime in if there's any particular concerns. If it's schools, if it's parks, whatever. There may be specific items that we actually want them to dive a little bit deeper into.
Yes,
And
this
so
is
before
outside
they
So
of our
start-
before we,
wheelhouse,
so we can
that's why I'm
approve
asking.
awarding them, and before we actually take action, we can ask for a project plan and decide whether or not what's in that $15,000 is what we need.
Right. What do they study? Yeah, that's all.
I have a...
Table of
now.
contents, for lack of
I
a better term.
understand.
Is there
now.
some way
Thank
we
you.
can have a fee schedule, though, for people that then do develop these properties to, kind of like we do for people that, benefit if we put in sewers? Have that part of the planning board fee, that they have to put so much money to the pro forma. That's been already done as to, just make it part of a planning board fee when they do come in to develop.
That's fine. It shouldn't be a burden on the taxpayer.
We'll probably have to absorb the cost
Play
up
with it.
front, but
Yeah.
as long as we have this allocated later on from a developer, then
But
it
this
makes sense.
data might help us plan better in the future, and we may save more money in the long run.
But we can
So I'm voting for it.
Yeah,
And for
We pay for it up
Steve's
front and then we bill the
edification, let's
developer.
find out what they're gonna put in it. And Steve, if you wanna forward some of your recommendations, please do.
So at
But
this.
I'll have to wait for the open public portion.
At this juncture, should we table this until we can do what Steve had recommended as far as a
No, let's
project
award, and
outline?
then when, it says not to exceed, right? We don't
You
have to
can
spend
do
a
it
dollar.
simultaneously.
We don't have to
Can
spend a
you?
dollar.
This isn't the first time they've done this. So
Okay, whatever's
let's ask
the-
them how it's, what their past experience is on how the funding is structured.
And like Steve said, if there, if there's a particular thing that they don't do that we would like to see done or something we don't
Before we spend a
consider
dollar,
necessary.
we can
Yeah.
look at the
So-
report.
Play with it.
So what is the
Take action.
direction?
Yeah, so in order to give Terry direction and make sure that this doesn't just get pushed out, do we want to take action right now on this as far as moving
We
forward with the?
authorize them to start the project.
Authorize to
and
start
we
the
review,
process.
according to what Steve says,
To
and if we don't like
review
what they want,
based on the
it's
project
not to exceed, we don't have to spend a
outline.
dollar.
So it's gonna be a resolution awarding to higher Gould for the fiscal impact study.
Yeah, no, but
with
let's
some
find
conditions.
out, before we award it, let's get the details, because otherwise, we could be paying for something that we didn't want and has. and-
We just said
and,
there's
uh,
No,
not to
we just
exceed,
said there's
right?
not to exceed.
Yeah.
We don't have to
So
spend
I
a
if we
dollar.
understand they're not to
eliminate something-
exceed, but, if you go to a restaurant and you say, I don't want to spend more than $30 on an entree, and they bring you an entree you don't like, you still spent $30.
No, we're asking to look at the menu.
So, yeah, let's
Stay there.
take a look at the menu before we pay the
We will.
bill.
No,
I
we're
gotta
not-
sit at the restaurant
But
first.
this still needs a resolution the
Yeah,
next
Yeah,
meeting.
that's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to get at,
Yeah.
Steve. Thank you.
Yeah.
We need to have some type of resolution to bring this up for our next meeting.
Yeah.
So we would need a
Otherwise,
resolution
we're just
then.
pushing it off again.
Progress.
I mean, I just don't want to see something get pushed to the side.
So
and
are
then-
we requesting from Higher and Gruel the
Yes.
project plan?
Yeah.
Yeah, project outline. We want to know what they're
So
studying and to what extent.
What is it the resolution going to contain when we have here, we received from Higher Gruel the fiscal impact study.
I think what it's,
Okay, so we would have to award to Higher Gruel with a not to exceed. That's basically giving them the okay to begin this fiscal study. What is it in the resolution you want to read? Prior to them starting this fiscal study, that they provide us with the impact plan? Or why don't we just go for
No,
the
no,
impact
not
plan?
impact plan. No, wrong
It's
terminology.
subject to
Yeah.
the beginning of this project, that they provide us a request for a project outline.
Which
And
they can do in the
approval-
next 2
And
weeks.
approval or modification of that outline.
And they probably can do this before the
For
next
the next
meeting.
meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what would
Yeah.
they,
That's
what
what
they
we're
should
trying,
do, Terry, is between now and a week from now, provide us, the council, with an outline of what they're intending to study. We can all give our feedback electronically, and then if everyone's comfortable, then we then proceed with the contract. Yeah. I just don't think it should be open-ended, because there are things that we could miss, and every town is unique, and so we need to make sure that what we think needs to be studied is being
Yeah.
incorporated.
You have all that now.
We're getting
Terry.
close, Steve. We're getting there.
We're getting there.
We're fighting for you, Steve. Come on.
Fighting.
No, we're fighting for everybody.
Okay, next item.
Everything's a fight.
Authorization for the Housing Authority to extend controls for a new period of 30 years for its units if they become vacant. This is something that is needed for our COA court case.
Next item.
Authorization to renew CAD system software maintenance agreement with Queens and Fourth Development of Stoneham, Massachusetts, to New Jersey State Contract T109A83889 in an amount not to exceed $25,776.
Next item.
Authorization to call for a police officer certification list from the Department of Personnel.
Next item.
Excuse me, Dan, while we're on police. We have a police officer in the back of the room. I love you, don't get me wrong. I mean, for years, we didn't have them. We seem to be having them a lot lately. I mean, how does the council feel about, taking a police officer and sitting him here in a council meeting for hours? Poor guy's got to be tired just standing there, too.
Is this typically, I mean, I don't know. I don't recall. I know that in
Is this all
recent
meetings?
meetings,
Is it all public
sometimes
meetings?
we see them, sometimes we don't. How does that work? Does somebody request that?
I've been requesting them.
Oh, is there an imminent threat
Well,
that I don't
it's
know of?
kind of,
Should I be
like
worried?
when you have a street and it's a busy street and you ask that a officer and a car be there, you have more compliance than if you have no officer at all. For most of the years that I've been up here, there's generally been an officer present at meetings. So,
Yeah, that was my next question, has always been.
No.
well, that's been my experience. So that being said, of course, you guys can vote any way you want, and you'll do what you want, so. But I have requested that an officer be present at the meetings. It does ensure a certain decorum, and for those without manners, it seems to provide the impetus for good manners.
How much is it for decorum? Do we,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I mean, like I said, I love having you back there too. What's the cost of decorum? Are we pulling, you know, is there an hourly cost on top of what we normally do? Like, I just want to understand how it works. Is
Instead
he-
of being out, you're sergeant, correct? Or did I just promote you again? I'm so sorry. If I could, I would. Yeah. But you're not out patrolling.
Okay, so we're taking you off of what you normally would be doing to come here, is that, I'm just trying to understand. Like, did they call you up at home and said,
No,
you know,
no.
get into uniform, come on, no, so you would normally, if you're not here, you're patrolling? You'd be on patrol, so.
But I'm sure if there was an emergency, this would not be your priority, you would leave.
I just think that, I mean, this is what is this, my 17th year? And for the good majority of that time, we have not had a police officer here. And I'm not saying that there aren't some times where it might be necessary, but I think for the majority of the past few meetings, it's really an unnecessary thing. And I mean, I think he'd be more better used patrolling the streets instead of sitting here. We do have a 4-man minimum.
Listen, your people don't want the officers here, so you're gonna do what your people want.
My people.
So,
What people are they?
The residents? Because this was brought up by the residents, Mayor. And
Mary,
I'm questioning
Mary,
it.
you will do what you're gonna do, or do what you've been told to do, so go ahead and do it.
Okay, well,
Why
just
go
feel,
on with the theatrics?
I think it should, because, Mayor, this is what these meetings are for. This is what the agenda meeting is for.
I'm sorry, I think Danny was trying to speak or something. Is he trying to speak?
To me, that the police are being called for specific people, not for everyday occurrences.
No, I'm just looking for order. Folks, you have the 4 votes, you will do what you do.
Well, I'm bringing it up. I mean, this is an agenda meeting. This is where we're supposed to discuss things like this. And I really think that unless there's a specific reason, maybe if any one of us would like to have a patrolman here for some reason, they call Terry or Mr. Frankel, whoever makes the arrangements, and then we get a consensus of the council as opposed to just one person feeling the need to have a police officer stand here. I'm pretty hot. I can't imagine what he is back there, standing there in that uniform. My opinion, does anybody agree with me?
I do like the idea of, I mean, again, I'm all for security, everyone here knows that. But I would like to see you also on the street protecting 45,000 residents. I know the last meeting, I think we started the meeting and we didn't have a police officer. I think the police officer came later.
Yep.
So was there a call for the police officer prior to, or was there a call for the police officer during the meeting? Was there an imminent threat during the meeting that I missed last time? I don't know.
Could we research that? Is that a record?
I didn't call him, so I have no record.
No, I have a standing instruction to the chief. When there's a meeting, please have an officer here.
So every meeting.
Fine.
Standing officer to the chief.
My
I-
job by law to run the meetings.
I don't
And
believe
and
that that's
what
a
I do.
truthful statement, Mayor. I
You don't?
believe
Okay.
that you asked Mr. Frankel to call for a patrol officer. You have no standard thing with the chief of police. You just misspoke.
I would check with him, Mary, because I did text him prior to the meeting, and I didn't see the officer here, so I asked Dan to call him. Because when you text someone, you don't know whether or not they get it, they're in town, or if it failed to be delivered, but apparently it was. And that's it.
Yeah,
So-
I know.
I don't know. How does everyone else feel? Steve, I think you were going to say something. It looked like it.
I'm a little confused as to the resolution that we're looking for here. I
I
guess this is the kind of thing, it's everybody's personal opinion. I think it's good to have a police officer here. I think this is a meeting where there sometimes is 100 residents. There are plenty of us sitting up here. All you need, and we do have well-mannered residents this evening, but people get heated, people get angry. All you need is one maniac with a gun, and it's over.
And
So,
That's
you know
what
what, if it's 4 hours twice a week, well, I know it's bulletproof, but all he needs to do is walk around. But it's 4 hours twice a month. You know, we're fortifying everything else. To me, it seems like a no-brainer. So I would want a police officer here. I just think it's responsible considering the times we live in and the high profile of this governing body.
do you think then we should also have one at all the planning board and zoning meetings that have a lot more attendance than we do here?
I think certainly we should assess that. I think there are very contentious zoning board meetings and contentious planning board meetings. I don't know if the police are called to those. I would imagine that they probably are. But I think, you know, we are the governing body here. If it's my opinion, I'd like a police officer here to protect me and my colleagues in the audience. And I would encourage to ask the zoning board and planning board if they feel that they need it as well. And if it's at their discretion, if they feel that they need a security presence, then sure. I mean, I don't think we should shortchange security.
I never do either. I just, I don't want to, my concern is, are we shortchanging the public security too? Because I think what I'm having a hard time with is the fact that this officer would right now be patrolling. Do we have to turn around and add something where now we have to pay somebody that's not on duty to man these things? Steve, I think to
I don't
your
think
point.
we need to add anybody. Again, this is not his priority. If there's an emergency, he leaves.
I'm not so good at multiplication,
I have no objection to
but
security
I mean,
being
there's got to
here.
be thousands of man-hours of police work done in this town every month. We're asking for maybe 8 hours of those thousands to have someone at the council meeting. It's a de minimis number. And so I'm shocked we're even having the discussion, to be honest with you. I think when people walk into churches and government buildings and shoot people up and shoot congressional softball games up, you know, I think we should have a police officer here.
I'm not opposed to the police officer. I just would like to see if I don't like to shortchange anybody anywhere. So if we're pulling somebody off the street, why don't we keep the person on the street and then assign somebody here instead? So that way we get the coverage on the street and we get the coverage here, and we're not shortchanging any entity. We get ours, and the public still gets that four-man minimum.
Why don't we get the opinion of the chief of police if this is a hardship on him?
That was what I was gonna recommend, of
That's
course.
not a bad idea.
Why don't we move in
Yeah, I
that
mean, where was
direction?
he supposed to be if he wasn't here? I mean, I guess you're saying the chief says it's not adequate, it's not necessary.
I beg-
You're saying that the chief would probably say it's not necessary to have him.
Why don't you ask him?
Well,
get his
that must be
Why
my,
don't we-
that's my
why don't-
assumption.
Why don't we ask the guy that we pay to
Yeah,
run
let's
the
ask
police
him.
department?
Yeah,
if-
I have
if
no
he-
problem with that.
Fair.
You know, in our past, we've had council meetings that we knew were contentious, and we requested that the police officer come
Yeah,
to
if
the
it gets
meeting,
contentious.
make sure that order was had. The concern I have with this is that we had a meeting where most of it, everyone knew, most of it was going to be in closed session, and we had a police officer come. And the appearance is that it was done to stymie one person or two people from speaking their
No,
mind.
no.
When in-
That
when in
may
the
be
history of
how
this
you're
co-
interpreting it, but that certainly wasn't.
When in the history of this co-litigation has there ever been a police officer that deterred someone from making a public statement?
I
I
didn't
mean, this
hear-
is out of left field. I mean, I know Ken mentioned it earlier, and I didn't know what he was talking about then, and I don't know what Dan Buchanan's talking about now. Never have we suppressed someone from making a comment
Well, no,
with a
no, it's
police
not true.
officer.
No, that's
I'll
not
add,
true.
I'll add that, with a police officer.
No,
I've never
that's
seen
not
it.
true. You weren't on the council when we had a police officer called
Well, I've been
here
here for
and
2.5
told to
years, and in the
escort
last 2.5
somebody down
years, a
'cause they
police
spoke
officer's
over
never
their
suppressed
5
public
minutes.
speech. I don't know where this is coming
How
from.
much longer are we gonna spend on this, folks? Are we gonna move forward, or we gonna vote for the free-for-all?
Yeah, Mayor, I think that I think the council could agree let's ask the chief. Again, I'm a
Let's
big
ask-
fan of more security everywhere.
All right, so we're in agreement, we'll ask the chief. All right, next item, Dan.
Request received from Sayreville Board of Education for the use of the portable stage for the middle school and high school graduation for June 21st and 22nd.
Next item.
Authorization to issue the following change orders for the library meeting room project. Change order number 3, removal of existing hose bib, increase of $1,182.72. Change order number 4, additional new carpet, increase of $535.50.
Next item.
In Public Works, just 2 items I'd like to add, which were not on there. I would like to read, these are 2 emails from Elise Barone. As you know, the borough had their paper shred event on Saturday. Although we had rain on and off, we had 411 vehicles check in. We shredded 16,420 pounds of paper. And also from Elise, on May 9th, we received a grant award of $10,075 from the Middlesex County Freeholders and the Division of Solid Waste for a competitive recycling enhancement grant. These funds will be used for a catwalk at our recycling depot for the safety of our residents when they dispose their recycling. I also have a request received from St. Stan's Church for the use of 2 borough golf carts during their annual parish carnival from June 18th, 2018 through June 25th, 2018.
Next item.
Authorization to advertise for bids for 1 Godwin Dry Prime CD 150M critically silenced or equivalent tow-behind bypass pump.
Next item.
Authorization to extend the contract for ferric chloride to PVS Chemical for an additional 1-year term not to exceed $337,750.
Next item.
And on your request, Mayor, I had a meeting with the director of the MCUA. After discussions going back and forth, we have agreed for a town meeting. The town meeting would be at the MCUA facility, so everybody can see what it is, where it is, what it's like. The new executive director said he would be there. He would have any staff that we want to be there, and that would be for June 13th at 6 p.m.
Okay, anything else, Dan?
Yes. Down the end of my here, Denise, welcome to your first meeting. I hope it is interesting. I hope there's many, many more. That's it, Mayor.
Okay, CFO's report.
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Engineers report, Jay Cornell.
Thank you, Mayor. The first item you've already taken action on during the first part of the meeting, so nothing else is necessary. Second item is the Scott Avenue Improvement Project. Middlesex County is getting ready to go forward with bidding that project. It's a total road reconstruction. As part of that, the borough is going to have to go through and replace an existing water main. This was discussed during your capital budget this year. The county's asking that we have a joint agreement with them, setting forth the terms of that agreement on the water main. So at this point, we're just looking for a resolution authorizing the mayor and the clerk to sign that agreement once it's finally approved by the attorney. That's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Borough Attorney's report.
No report, Mayor.
Okay, anything for executive session?
No, sir.
Okay, public portion, 5-minute limitation on any and all issues. Steve?
Steve Malineski, 28 Scarlet Drive in Parlin. I find it a little difficult to listen to some of the time we've spent on some of these items. I want to congratulate Councilman Grillo and Council President Fitzpatrick for at least looking into the COA pro forma. What really is upsetting is that there should be a project plan. There probably is. We don't know what we not want. Vicki mentioned, rightfully so, our excess capacity or lack thereof. This is part of a plan. You need to know what your capacity planning is for the number of houses and people that we're going to have in our town. No matter what the settlement is, no matter what the number of houses are, this plan has to go forward so that we can figure out what is it we need to do as a town, whether it be schools, teachers, infrastructure. It has to be there. I think this plan, whether it's $15,000 as a limit, should be approved immediately and put forward with a discussion with the firm to say, what's the plan? What are the topics that you're going to cover? How thorough are you going to get? Because I'm not sure we thoroughly know what all the moving parts are to this COA initiative. So for us to say, well, we want to see what we want, I think what we need to do, as Councilman Grillo said, let's get that plan. Let's sit down with them, authorize the 15,000, predicated on what we're going to cover, how deep are we going to get, for what. Because they must know, they've probably done it before, I'm assuming, if we're doing business with them. I know Susan Gruhl has done a lot of work already with COA. So that should be a must as we can move forward, so that we don't handcuff the firm, but yet sit on top of it. And every firm that I've ever dealt with on a project plan will have a project plan, will have a depth. The cost of the project depends on the depth you need and want. So they should be able to go over that with an authorization not to limit 15. Where we get the money from, that's for the council to determine, not for the firm that we're hiring. However, what is it we need? How deep are they going to go? And how thorough do we really expect to get it? I think they would know. So, you know, from my perspective, and I know I've been chasing everybody here for months, let's authorize the 15,000 up to, and also ask, as Councilman Grillo said, what's the project plan? Are we going to cover this? Are we going to take in consideration capacity planning? And I think that's the right way to go.
Anything else, Steve?
Nothing further, Council.
Thank you. Ken?
Thank you, Mayor. Ken Olszewski, 108 North Edward Street. I want to congratulate the governing body for passing Resolution 2018-155, authorizing Hayek Roll and Associates to update the borough's land use development ordinance, zoning ordinance, and zoning map at a cost not to exceed $72,000. While I'm delighted that somebody is looking at expenses and questions something, Councilman Lembo, I think that happened to be the wrong thing. I think that $72,000 is probably the best money that you're going to be spending in a long, long time. These ordinances are way out of date, and quite frankly, an issue that just came before the Board of Adjustment recently in the Temple. There could have been an entirely different outcome of the size, et cetera, if we had looked and changed some of these ordinances along the way. So that's a very good move, a very forward-looking move. Thank you for doing the same. On the authorization for the Housing Authority to extend controls for a new period of 30 years for its units if they become vacant. As chairman of the Housing Authority, I would just like to say I requested this resolution. It's actually not authorization. It's really support, because we don't need to authorize it. The Housing Authority, as many of you know, is an autonomous body. But I just want to point out that we made one change already in relation to our COA attorney and planner, and that was we removed the preference for several residents that was put in when the Housing Authority was built back in Gillette Manor. I'm sorry, not the Housing Authority was built. Gillette Manor back in 1990 or 1991, whatever it is, and we have no waiting list. We have not had a waiting list for any real waiting list for 3 or 4 years. So I don't think that hurts to remove the preference for several residents. I didn't even know if that was legal. The first thing I did was have it checked out to see if we were able to have a preference for several residents. I thought that could have been just thrown in as a sweetener, because when you discussed in the past, when we tried to look at development of the Ernst & Rood, of a new building there, and somebody talked about, opposition from neighbors. Let me remind you, or some of the people who weren't around, there was a lot of opposition to Gillette Manor when that was built. The people across the street on, the name of the street escapes me, but yes, Hilltop, yeah. They were opposed to it. Many said, some of the comments you got, oh, you're trying to put seniors into the ground early, being, you know, that's built into a bank, and the fourth level is the ground level. So there was a lot of opposition, so I would take a little grain of salt. My comment, and Mr. Robinson had talked about the desirability of doing this project on Ernstton Road. And I didn't want to get into that. I'm not trying to resell it. But my comment on it, when neighbors talk about opposition to it, I think putting a senior building there is probably some of the least intensive use that they will ever see. So I just say, look, I've fought things in the past that we all have that were in our neighborhood, and I'm not here to sell that. I just want to explain on this that it's a support of the governing body, so we know how you feel about it. If people come here and say, well, what are you doing? You're taking away preference for Sayreville residents. It's 30 years, but it's 30 years from vacancy. So some of the, and it's unit by unit, so some of these units, we could be saying that we are extending controls for, there are residents that have been there 15, 18 years, so it could be 45, 50 years. We have no list right now. We were comfortable going to 2025. In reality, when you look at the calendar, that's all not that far away. But when you start talking about going 30 and 40 years, unless you have a crystal ball, you don't know what things are. And remember, Gillette Manor is the only affordable senior facility that we have in the borough. So I just wanted to comment on that. It's on the agenda. And there are so many things today that let me just throw one other quick thing out, and that is the meeting at the MCUA. I am very happy that that's going to come about, and being there, we talked about having it here. I think there were some advantages to having it here, but there are certainly some advantages to having it down at the MCUA premise. And quite frankly, when I first brought this thing up, look, I don't think the MCUA is going away. And I don't think we're going to get perfume odors coming from the MCUA. We have to be realistic. The big problem I have with the MCUA is a lack of communication. I don't want it to be that, well, this is only Sayreville. It doesn't matter what happens in Melrose. Since I live, I live in North Brunswick or Piscataway or whatever town, and, in a couple of weeks, I'll be out there smelling the flowers. And the people in Sayreville can smell the stuff that I'm flushing down the toilet. So that's the attitude that I don't want to see at the MCUA. I want them to know that we're here, and I think they need to communicate with us on a regular basis on what's going on, if there are problems, what's being done about it. They talked about, the consultant was here, said they're going to replace scrubbers from the 1990s? Really? I mean, that seems like a long, long time. So we need to see, A, that our host community benefit is what it should be, and an agreement we have, I think they already violated that agreement, how the people from Sayreville have suffered. So I don't think that the agreement is till, somebody said 2021. I don't think we ought to, we ought to do what we can to get our rightfully so for the residents of town. And, like anything else, we don't live in a vacuum here. And the only place where you can't do anything about anything is if you live in China, North Korea, or some banana republic here. Everybody's responsible to somebody. And I can come to the microphone and talk about who the MCUA is responsible to, et cetera, and what we should do to those people if necessary. And if it's true, and I have no reason to believe it's not, the gentleman from Melrose that went to a freeholder meeting and said it's autonomous, we can't do anything about it. Are you joking? No, that's not true at all. Thank you very much.
Jim? Oh, wait a minute, Jim. Let me get Janet first, ladies first. Okay, come on, Jim.
Mayor, before Jim goes, I forgot one thing, if I may. I just have to take a poll from the council. We are going to need a special meeting next week for settlement agreements for COA. So it would be for reviewing settlement agreements, so I'd like everybody to check their calendars. So we also could maybe even announce this evening. Monday seems to be a good day for everybody in the sense that Monday seems to be in the realm. I don't know how long that meeting's going to be. I don't know how quickly people from New York can get here. Usually we have it between 6 or 7 o'clock. And Terry's going to have to advertise, so.
Can you do 6? I can do 6.
I can do Monday.
The earlier the better.
Yeah.
Monday's at
I
6?
can do 5:30 if you want.
Yeah.
You'd have to do it at 7?
This is the 21st.
Can you call in? Not that I don't want you there in person, Dan. I know, I don't want you used to it either, I just, you know, I'm okay with any time. Okay.
So 6
So is the
o'clock on
preference
Monday.
at 6 o'clock on the 21st? Okay, thank you.
Okay, Jim?
Thank you very much, Mayor. Jim Robinson, 11 Burrell Square. I just want to pick up on what Mr. Olszewski said about that request from the Housing Authority. I would hope that the council would look favorably upon that. You know, what he said about when that was originally built, people did not want that. And Mr. Cornell is probably the only person here who knows how that came about. Mr. Gillette came before the planning board to build a strip mall there, and all the residents of Hilltop Avenue were opposed, and he threw up his hands and said, well, what on earth can I do with this property then? And I had suggested that he build senior housing there because we had a need for that in the town, and he had not thought about that prior to that and took that idea, and now we have that. But the important thing about what Mr. Olszewski and the Housing Authority are requesting, and this is important to remember, you will recall that when Mr. Leon Cavello was here, I asked meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting if we were getting credit for Gillette Manor. Well, it turned out we weren't getting credit for Gillette Manor. He wasn't even sure what Gillette Manor was. When Susan Gruhl came in, she did some work, and it turns out that we have to make that change to get that credit. That credit will be for 84 units. Those 84 units, which are already existing, means under the formula that 504 or 506 units of market rate housing do not have to be built somewhere else in town. So approving this means that you will be reducing our COA obligation by 506 homes, or apartments. So I think that's market rate apartments. So I think that's very important. And while I'm on the subject of senior housing, I have talked at every meeting about the other end of Ernston Road by the mini mall. There was a proposal to put senior housing there. I would ask that, well, is anything happening on that? Have you done anything since the last meeting?
What is the appropriate action to take? Should it be brought up by the housing, should it be brought to us by the Housing Authority as a formal proposal? I don't think we have anything to debate, Mr. Robinson, to be honest with you. I think it hasn't been presented to us, if I recall.
Well,
I think it's incumbent on the Housing Authority to provide us with a proposal.
Well,
I think that happened. I saw records of it in the planning board where they went to the planning board. It came to the council. I think maybe you should dig out those records and resurrect that because...
It was a concept, Jim. It wasn't a plan. It was a concept.
Well, it was a little bit more than a concept, but it has gone nowhere.
Do they need, does the Housing Authority need to come before us once again to request that? Is that the...
Well, maybe Mr. Olszewski is in a better position to talk about what the Housing Authority
Mr.
actually
Robinson,
did.
Jay gave me a little chronology on this. Apparently, I don't remember very well, the council referred it to the planning board to review if that would qualify as an area in need of redevelopment, and the planning board did not act on it and never returned anything to the governing body.
Well,
that is where I think it left off.
I know this, there are records that the planning board has and memos and reports, and I saw that, so, You know, it's not my job to go dig those things out, but if you're committed to senior housing, which I think you are, and I hope you are, I would suggest you do what is necessary. Ask Mr. Frankel, the administrator, to coordinate this and bring this to the table so that in an agenda session you can talk about doing whatever is the next step. Otherwise, you're going to have to listen to me at every future meeting, and it's going to require a policeman to be brought off the road to keep me in control. With respect to the Crossman track, I'm not going to get into the merits or the demerits of that, other than to say, whatever happens there, I hope that the extension of Lakeview Drive will be a part of it. That is a very important roadway. It's in the master plan. It is an important north-south connection. We don't have a lot of north-south connections. We have Ernston Road, and if you're smart enough to cut through Schmidt Street, you could do that, and then there's Pulaski Avenue. But with the traffic in this town, we certainly need that north-south roadway or connection. So whatever happens there, whatever plan, and I'm not going to express my preference here, but I hope that that will be a part of it. It's in the master plan. That's required. If this is in litigation, this is part of a settlement, I think that the judge ought to know that it's in the master plan and that it is required, because sometimes when you discuss things and the judge doesn't know everything, the decisions reflect that. And speaking of that, when I spoke before about the 4.5 acres on North Ernston Road, I did not mention the COA litigation, but obviously there is a connection, and while you all listened very politely, I don't know that there was any reaction, and I think that if we are in negotiations with Mr. Kaplan, if the town is in fact desirous or willing to purchase that property, I think that would be a valuable tool for the attorney to have. So, Mr. DuPont, do you know the council's position on the purchase, the possible purchase of that property?
You know, Mr. Robinson, you're well-versed in litigation. You know, I can't comment on the
Sure, I know there are constraints that you're under.
And I know Mr. Serenian is coming on a week from today, so he'll give us an update.
Okay, I just want to make sure that you have all the ammunition and tools that are available to you, and if that is something that could be on the table, that you are in a position to say that it in fact is on the table.
As I explained to Mrs. DiBenedetto, all of your questions, all of your information, and all of your persuasive arguments have been presented to Mr. Serenian, and so he's well-versed.
He's told me that.
He's well-versed.
He told me he was overwhelmed with some of the arguments, but he appreciated them.
I talk to him on a regular basis. I'm sure I'll be calling him. He'll be calling me after this meeting tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me just, when a municipal official texts a borough official, is that a public record? Is that something that's operable?
Well,
if it's an official message, if it's a directive or something like that?
The question is that what type of technology was used, who owns the technology. You know, you get into some issues regarding who owns the technology and that type of stuff.
Well, I think content is more important than who owns the technology.
Well, again, there are cases on
that.
Well, there's cases on that, but again, there are cases also disavowing any type of intrigue or because remember, the Open Public Records Act pertains to documents and texts and emails that are contained and stored by the borough.
Mm-hmm.
So there are cases on this particular point. So that's.
So, for instance, if somebody texted something and the receiver was a borough official, well, then it would be operable.
Again, depending on the
yes,
tool
it was in an
used,
official
right.
capacity. If they were being invited to a cocktail
Think, you know,
party,
you're
probably not.
You're getting in some hypotheticals,
Yes,
and I'm always
of course.
reluctant to get into
Might be hypothetical, might be real world.
You know, again, Mr. Robinson, if you gave me some facts versus hypothetical, that'd be a different story.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Janet?
Janice Benedetto, 1 Thomas Avenue in the Melrose section of Saraville. I'm happy to see that the MCUA meeting is planned, but I thought we had agreed on having it here so that it would be televised. and be transparent to all of the residents. The other thing I'm concerned about is that it's a Wednesday, and is that a Wednesday where there's a planning board meeting scheduled at the same time so that we can't be in two places at once?
Jay says no.
No?
Jay said no.
Not for a planning board. All right, well, from the point of view of the residents, we don't need to tour the facility. We need them to hear our complaints and to pay attention and start a communication and hear what their plans for resolving the problems and concerns are. Because we also have had residents calling since we got the number to call and what have you, and we didn't see any real evidence of any real action, and no one got any calls back like they were promised. So, you know, touring the facility is not going to help the situation.
You're not going to be able to tour the facility.
Well, you had said about being
Be
able to
on
see.
the premises of the facility.
right,
You're
well-
not going to tour the facility.
All right, well.
I just want to make sure you understand that.
Okay, well then I misunderstood that. So I don't see any benefit to us being at the facility. I see benefit to it being a town meeting that's televised or even if possible live streamed at the same time and what have you, and that's later played so that residents you know, can see it who cannot attend and can have input. I think that we had, the mayor had specifically asked me, you know, should it be at the Melrose Firehouse, should it be at the MCUA, or should it be here? And I thought we had decided it was going to be here.
Mayor, the chairman of the MCUA, along with other people that are there, along with any other paperwork, along with any other plans, along with any other aerials or anything like that, would be at MCUA. They felt because of a lot of the residents' concerns, it would be beneficial to have all of their supplies, all of their maps, anything that the residents needed, they could just be able to pull out on premises.
Well, I think it would be good if they packed their dog and pony show and came here and have it be televised.
Whichever is the preference of the council, that was a suggestion. I thought it was a good suggestion. If people want to change it, I would have to go back to the director and see if that's possible, and it's up to the council.
I have a question, Dan. Is there any way that, I mean, I don't know, because I hear what Janice is saying, you know, I would like to have it on record too for individuals that can't attend. Can we record in that facility and find a way to, you know, broadcast? Is that something feasible? That might go to Ricky.
The other thing is, people will pay more attention. Their responses may be more responsive if they know they're going on record and they're being seen by the residents of the entire town who may not be in attendance.
And I have one more question, just because I have never physically stepped foot in the MCUA. Do they have a forum large enough to accommodate, you know, a crowd? Where would we be having this meeting?
Well, maybe it's a good thing a crowd shows up there. Maybe it'll
Yeah, well,
take some
and I
action.
don't know how many people know how, you know, how to navigate over there. They know how to get here, but is there a forum large enough for them to accommodate potentially
I
a
didn't
large
ask their
amount?
capacity. They have a very large conference room,
Okay.
and I don't know the capacity.
All right. I was just curious. I've never been there, so I didn't know what kind of forum it would be. Can we look into that? I mean, what was the date again? I put it in my phone.
June 13th.
June. Can we get some feedback to see if there's a way that we can actually record?
I will ask to call the chairman tomorrow and ask, do they have the ability to record? Do we have recording?
And then,
Are we bringing our recording? They don't record their meetings, I don't believe.
It is, okay.
Right. I want to do my phone.
So maybe we
I'll do cell
start
phone.
there, and then we'll have a follow-up town hall meeting with the results. You already scheduled it, right?
I can ask, if you desire, I can ask them to come here. They were asking to have it there because of all of the material they have on premises that they will be able to look at. If any residents want information, it is there. So if you desire to change, I could talk to the chairman and see if they're willing to bring a couple things over here. It's up to you as the council.
I think I'd prefer having it here.
Yeah, I think I like this form only because you have minutes that's then taken. Will there be minutes taken at that particular meeting at the MCUA? You know, is it a formal meeting like you would have here? I do think there's value to making sure the residents, whether they can attend it or not, really sees the discussion.
Advertise for that?
'Cause I-
So let's do it on a regular
Doesn't
council meeting
advertise it
day.
as a formal meeting.
We're here all night.
I mean, how does anybody else feel? I mean, you know, this is just my
I
opinion.
mean, whether we meet here or there, it still has to be advertised if there's 4 of us in the room. It's an effective quorum. If 3 of us and the mayor are there, it's an effective
Well,
quorum.
if that's the
yeah,
type of
that's-
meeting that you were looking to have. I mean, is it a town meeting, or is it a special meeting where the mayor and council would be conducting this meeting?
Well, we're not conducting it, but I think if we're there,
But if we're here, then we're up here, right? Then it's an official meeting.
yeah.
So then let's do it on a council meeting. Just have them come in. Why do we have to have a special meeting?
I don't know, we might want to dedicate 2 hours to this.
No, we're here all night. Prior? Why don't?
Find out the answer.
No, it wouldn't be during a council meeting if it's
Yeah.
going to be held on the 13th, if you just want to switch the forum from the MCUA to here.
Everybody- Dan will find out the answer to these questions.
Get some
and
answers.
then we still have another meeting to go over.
Janice, are you
Yes.
okay with the being moved here with the understanding that some of the documents, drawings, information may not be readily available because it cannot be transported?
You're right.
Yes or
Okay?
no? That's yes or
The
no?
drawings and the plans or what have you, they can always come back to us and say they'll get that information like at any meeting.
So that's a yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else, Janet?
Okay, one other thing regarding the discussion on the police officers being here. I think that the residents are happy with security at public meetings, with the world being what it is today, but not at the sacrifice of potential police involvement if there's an emergency for the residents. So I think also involving meetings like this and whatever the Plan C was that you passed a while ago on the school systems and things of that sort, where police may be patrolling schools at odd times. As a resident, if I had a heart attack, I wouldn't want my police patrol from my neighborhood to be at this meeting and me to die because nobody got to me soon enough, or a car accident, or a robbery, or whatever the case of emergency would be. So I think we need to look at how we keep our neighborhoods patrolled and we take care of the extra security needs of the world that we live in today. So I'm not opposed to having a police officer here or in the schools, but I'm opposed to having an emergency and there being time delay, which could cause life and injury or loss of, property, or injury, medical conditions, emergencies, loss of life and limb. So I just wanted to bring that up. I don't know if there's a response to that on the council and the governing body and the mayor.
We asked the chief to give us an opinion, so.
I think you echoed my concerns. I think you pretty much said the same thing I did. I want as much security as possible, and just ask the chief, is he, better serving us on the street? And then maybe we have somebody assigned to the council meeting or a planning board meeting or whatever, separate and, above and beyond what we have on the streets.
And that might be something budgetarily why that you use class 3, 4, or lower paid officers in all extracurricular type of services other than street patrol.
Yeah,
I don't know. Well, but that's your police chief's decision. And the last thing is, Mr. Frankel, since I can't provide a bill from Cablevision from another resident from another town, you might have the ability to contact other business administrators from other towns where Cablevision is the provider and find out how they have handled their negotiations and what their billing structure is, and do a comparison to help in this negotiation process where we should be very aggressive. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your advice.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ruth Ann, I'll get you after Ken.
Ken Olszewski, 108 North Edward Street. Since I'm the guy that originally brought up this police thing, I indicated when I was up here, in no way am I trying to tell you how to handle the security of the town. That's up to you people and the chief. You, as I told you, Mayor, and it happens to be for every council person, you speak for 45,000 people. I speak for one. But I do think I've been in management all my life. Since I was 24 years old, I managed 70, 80 people. Some of them have been with my company for 35 years or more. I think you have to use discretion. What I was trying to point out, I don't think it makes a lot of sense to have a police officer standing in the back of the room when you have 4 or 5 people at a special meeting. In most of those meetings, those special meetings, that's all you get. You get 4 or 5 people. I think that's probably not a good use of resources of the borough. That's what I was trying to point out. What you do at council meetings, you know, that's up to you. It's up to the chief. I did check, by the way, let me tell you, I did check with the Board of Adjustment. The only meeting I believe they had a police officer was the one on the Ernston Road nursing home / a drug facility. I think they had a police officer there. I was not at that meeting. I was at several Board of Adjustment meetings, and there were no police officers there. It's just common sense. If you have a big issue and you're going to have a big crowd, I don't think you really even need to get them in advance. I think the Dan Frankels of the world, or the secretary on a Board of Adjustment, or the planning board, can call the police department and ask for somebody to come. That makes sense. So that's where I wanted to just speak on that. But really, what I wanted to just talk about was the Ernston Road that was brought up after I sat down. Here's where it was left. I did not make the presentation. It was made by the then chairman, George Gonzalez, and Doug Zema, who was our executive director. I think it was an excellent presentation. Everybody is a little bit right. No, there wasn't a formal plan, primarily because we don't have the money at the Housing Authority to do a formal plan. It was a concept plan that was done voluntarily. I mentioned this at microphone before. Our director was able to get one of the builders, I think the one that did the project in Perth Amboy, where it was the old vocational school. They had done a concept plan for us. What we were here for was money, not dollars from you. You needed a contribution from the borough, and that contribution was the land on Ernston Road. And you, Mayor, I think I can quote you from memory, said, we can't do anything on this until we get the outcome of the COA that is before us. At that time, nobody, I think, was too familiar with where we were at COA, only that there was some discussion up somewhere, but I don't think the residents knew. But that was your quote, and I think when the council didn't act on giving us the land, that killed the idea of it, and it's gone. Can it be resurrected? Yes, it can be resurrected. I think it was about, from memory, I'm going to say it was about 75 units. That's been decided to be the most effective size for the building. The first floor, we were talking about maybe having some facilities for senior, like medical facilities. George Gonzalez at that time was on the board of Raritan Bay Medical Center. Since the merger, he's probably not on the main board. I think he's on an associated board. But he was talking about perhaps getting some doctors, et cetera, on the first floor. There was somebody had a proposal, again, only talk, about maybe childcare on the first floor. I don't know how that would have gone over. But, and had the other floors with the senior housing. So it died at that point. Is the Housing Authority interested in resurrecting it? If that could happen, I think we would be. And by the way, I said this before, but I'm going to repeat it because I don't think you remembered it. It might conflict with what I just told you, that we don't have a waiting list. Well, why the hell do we need more senior housing? We did pay to do a study, a Rutgers study. We polled the people, I think maybe over 55 in the borough, to see where they stood, whether they were going to be interested, and it was a very positive response. Why we don't have a waiting list at the Gillette Manor right now, I can't give you an answer to that. It could be that that competition. There's a new facility in South Amboy, you know, 3 or 4 years now. Maybe that's, people are going there. I can tell you one thing that would be very beneficial to anybody that wanted to discuss senior housing. It would be worthwhile, and we can arrange this at the Housing Authority, for our director, Doug Zema, to get you into that Perth Amboy facility on New Brunswick Avenue and see what a great facility that is. They have a gymnasium, they have a library, they have porches, and bear in mind, we're talking about Perth Amboy here. Now, they don't have a lot of money to shell out in Perth Amboy. There was $1 million that came from the freeholders by the chair lady of the longtime chair lady of the Perth Amboy Housing Authority, Dorothy Carter Daniel. She bugged them, and they made her a promise. There was $1 million contribution from there, but that was built with finance from New Jersey Housing and Mortgage Finance Funds, which we wanted to apply. We wanted to get on the list, and the score that was come up for us would have put us in good stead to get money. Now, did it promise money? No, that's in competition with a lot of other people. So
You're at 6 minutes. So if
yeah,
you could
I'm done, Mayor. I just
conclude it.
was coming here as a public service to
Thank you.
explain something
Thank
that everybody didn't seem to know.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Ruth Ann? I lose you. You're pretty petite back there.
Ruth Ann Mahoney, 2 Gerard Place. I just have 2 comments. One, we wouldn't be discussing the police issue if we had adequate police officers in Sayreville. And the second is, thank you for paving North Ernston Road. It's wonderful.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Being no other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I move the public portion be closed.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Aye. Take a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everyone. Hey, Steve, do you have a minute?
Dan, are you still on the line? There's resolutions, need him to sign. She's got a long arm.